Chapter 136. East Fu Army Camp, Central Army Tent. A communications officer hurriedly ran over, looking slightly panicked. He knelt down in the camp and reported to Commander Watanabe. Commander, we lost contact with the mighty team led by Lu Chuanwu. After investigation, the mighty team was annihilated in the mountains around 30 miles north of Wanha town. In the central tent, Commander Watanabe, as well as many high-ranking generals, were shocked when they heard this. Lu Chuanwu was a late-stage 9th-level martial grandmaster. Even if he encountered a half-step martial saint, even if he was not a match for him, he still had the hope of escaping. Unless they were surrounded by many experts, or a martial saint intervened, how could the entire mighty team be wiped out? Every Luchuan was a high-ranking officer in the army. Every death of one was a huge loss. In Watanabe's view, even if they massacred 100 towns, they would not gain any substantial benefits. It was not as precious as a Liuchuan's life. Their purpose of massacring the towns was to force the Luoxing Kingdom's army to stop defending East Mountain City, and send out small teams to fight with them. This way, the Luoxing Kingdom's army would lose the advantage of defending the city. In order to ensure the survival of each team, there should be at least one martial Dao realm Luchuan. Even if they encountered a half-step martial sage, they should have the ability to escape. It was unlikely for the entire team to be annihilated. Moreover, the Luoxing Kingdom's army had to guard the eastern mountain city to prevent the Dongfu Kingdom's army from attacking the city. It was unlikely for a half-step martial sage to leave the eastern mountain city, so that he could rush back in time when the city was attacked. After all, East Mountain City was the place that the Luoxing Kingdom's army needed to defend. If East Mountain City was captured, the East Fu army would be able to march straight into Purple Mountain Prefecture and wipe out all four sides. Bastard! How did they die? Who killed them? Before Watanabe could speak, Lu Chuanji had already roared in anger. Lu Chuanwu was Lu Chuanji's right-hand man. One of the 5 Luchuan legions, Luchuan Legion, was killed by Yi Xing during the siege. Now another one had fallen. Almost half of them were dead. The communications officer said. According to our investigation, Lu Chuanwu was killed by an arrow through his throat. In addition, 1 Chiliarch, 2 centurions, and several 5th and 6th level martial artists were killed by an arrow through their throats. An arrow through the throat? Everyone immediately thought of the archer who had killed dozens of generals of the Luchuan Legion and Dongxian Legion. Yi Xing. It's this little bastard who killed him again. Watanabe Hiroshi roared. The defeat of the East Fu army was all because of Yi Xing. If it were not for Yi Xing, the East Fu army would not have suffered such a loss, whether it was a duel or a siege. Besides, the Dongfu Emperor's grandson, young Master Jinshan, had also died in Yi Xing's hands. Watanabe hated Yi Xing to the core. Now that he knew that the annihilation of Lu Chuanwu's Wuwei squad was related to Yi Xing, how could Watanabe hold back his anger? Of course he was enraged. Lu Chuanji was similarly enraged. It's this bastard Yi again. Damn bastard. I can't wait to skin him alive and eat his flesh to vent the hatred in my heart. How could this bastard Ye's archery skill kill Lu Chuanwu? Lu Chuanwu was a 9th level late-stage grandmaster. Dongxian Heng, the Dongxian Legion's commander, regained some rationality amidst his rage. He immediately realized that Yi Xing's archery skill did not seem to be that powerful. However, no one could answer this question. Other than Yi Xing, who else in Luoxing's army had such archery skill? If there was, that person's archery skill would be even better than Yi Xing's. It was impossible that it did not show during the siege. More generals of the East Fu army would have fallen. Then it could only be Yi Xing. This could only mean that Yi Xing's archery skill had improved again, and his ability had improved greatly. A few days later, in the East Fu army's camp, a communications officer reported another piece of military news with a similarly panicked expression. Marshal, we lost contact with the magnificent squad led by Captain Zi Chuanhong. After investigation, the squad was completely annihilated outside Qianshan town. Captain Zi Chuanhong was killed by an arrow through his throat. Captain Zi Chuanyan, Centurions Zi Chuanguang and Zi Chuanling were also killed by an arrow through their throats. He's dead. Bastard. A few days later, at the same location, the same communications officer, but his expression was even more panicked than before. He reported a very similar piece of military news. Marshal, we lost contact with the Woody squad led by Captain D of West Wind. After investigation, the Woody squad was completely annihilated in the mountains 40 miles south of Qingyuan town. Captain D was killed by an arrow through his throat. Many of the other squad members were also killed by an arrow through their throats. In less than 10 days, the third squad had been completely annihilated. 3 captains, 6 Kiliarchs, and 12 centurions had lost their lives. Dozens of level 5 and level 6 martial artists had also fallen. This was a huge loss for the Dongfu Kingdom's army. Among these fallen soldiers, at least half of them were killed by an arrow through their throats. Therefore, Watanabe Hiroshi and the others hated Yi Xing to the extreme. Slap Watanabe Hiroshi slammed his palm down. The marshal's table in front of him was almost smashed by him. He said angrily, "If we don't get rid of that bastard Yi, our East Fu army will be defeated sooner or later. No matter what method we use, we must kill this bastard. Kill this bastard." The communications officer's body trembled under Watanabe Hiroshi's roar. He said, "Marshal, there is another good news. The spies we have arranged in the enemy's army have found out Yi Xing's background." Watanabe Hiroshi's eyes lit up. "Speak," the communications officer said. "Yi Xing is a new student of Zishan Academy. He is 16 years old this year. He is from Qingye Town in Tiansong City of Zishan Prefecture. His birthplace is Qingye Town, which is about 140 miles northeast of Dongshan City. His parents and clansmen are all in Qingye Town." "Good. This time, we must make that bastard die without a burial place." Watanabe Hiroshi's face revealed a rare happy expression. He said, "Send a message to Vice Legion Commander Ryuga Wataka. Tell him to lead Team Ambitious and Ruthless to Qingye Town. At the same time, find a way to let that bastard Yi know that Qingye Town is under attack. Let him walk into the trap." Team Ambitious and Ruthless led by Ryuga Wataka is the strongest team that infiltrated Dongshan City. It is also the only team led by a half-step martial saint. This time, the East Futian army was determined to kill Yi Xing. Watanabe Hiroshi did not believe that Yi Xing, who was only at the 7th level of the martial path, could pose a threat to a half-step martial sage with his archery skills. "Bastard Yi, this time you will definitely die," Watanabe Hiroshi said in his heart. The communications officer retreated. About an hour later, a huge black eagle descended from the sky and landed in front of the East Fu army's camp. On the back of the black eagle, there is a middle-aged man who is close to 40 years old. Behind him, there is a faint shadow. The middle-aged man's aura surged, far surpassing that of a 9th great master, or even a half-step martial saint. He sat on the back of the black eagle and glanced at Dongshan City, before jumping down. In Dongshan City, Zishan Ho suddenly sensed something and looked towards the east. He sensed the aura of a martial saint, and it is a high-rank martial saint. In the camp, Watanabe Hiroshi and the others sensed the arrival of a guest and immediately rushed out. When they saw the middle-aged man, their expressions changed and they all knelt on the ground and bowed to him. "Greetings to the Western Expedition Grand Marshal." It turns out that this person is the Western Expedition Grand Marshal of the East Fu country's million-strong army, Watanabe Jean, a high-rank martial saint and the cousin of the East Fu country's ruler. Watanabe Jean snorted. His expression did not say anything. He directly entered the camp and sat on the commander's seat. Watanabe Hiroshi and the others quickly followed him and continued to kneel. There are 2 updates tonight. Chapter 137. Thump thump thump. Thump thump thump. Yi Xing's group of 5 was riding on their demonic horses. They had heard the news spread by the East Fu army that they were going to massacre Qingye Town. Thinking of the tragic state of Wanhe Town, Yi Xing's heart was burning with anxiety. No matter what, he could not let Qingye Town suffer such a disaster. Therefore, as soon as he heard the news, Yi Xing rushed to Qingye Town. Wei Qingxian and the other 3 naturally followed him. At the same time, another team was also rushing to Qingye Town. It was Team Ambitious and Ruthless, led by Luchuan Xiao. Team Ambitious and Ruthless had a total of 23 people. Except for Luchuan Xiao, who was a half-step martial sage, The other 22 people were the same as the other teams. One of them was a 9th layer martial scholar, 2 8th layer martial scholars, 4 7th layer martial scholars, 6 6th layer martial scholars, and 9 5th layer martial scholars. However, with the addition of Lu Chuanxiao, who was a half-step martial sage, Team Ambitious and Ruthless strength had more than doubled compared to the other teams. With the addition of the word martial sage, even if it was only a half-step martial sage, it was completely different from a 9th layer martial Dao realm martial artist. The Dantian no longer had a few star rings, but a different form. Moreover, the inner strength in the body began to transform into star essence. Star essence and inner strength, the power was not at the same level. Yi Xing's group of 5 had heard the news spread by the East Fu army and rushed to Qingye town. Compared to Team Ambitious and Ruthless, they were a bit slower. However, Yi Xing's group of 5 had taken the shortest route to Qingye town. Team Ambitious and Ruthless were soldiers of the East Fu army. They had to pay attention to their whereabouts in the Luoxing kingdom. They did not directly take the main road, but took a detour to the Qingyun mountain range in the north. As a result, Yi Xing's group of 5 had rushed to Qingye town before Team Ambitious and Ruthless. Seeing that Qingye town was in good condition, Yi Xing felt relieved. Yi Xing's group of 5 didn't arrive much earlier than Team Ambitious and Ruthless. When they arrived at Green Leaf Village, Yi Xing's gaze swept in all directions. Several li to the north, he discovered a group heading towards Green Leaf Village. There was no time to enter the Ye family. Yi Xing took Wei Qingxian and the other 3 and headed north. He wanted to stop the Dongfu country's army outside of Qingye village. The two sides soon met. From afar, Rukuwa Xiao had an excited smile on his face. During the siege, Rukuwa Xiao had chased after Yi Xing for a while, but Yi Xing had escaped into the city, which made Rukuwa Xiao fearful of him. Now that they had met in the wild, Rukuwa Xiao did not believe that Yi Xing would have a chance to escape from him. It's him. Vice Legion Commander of the Luchuan Corps. He is a half-step martial sage. Wan Xingliang, Yang Yun and Lu Chen exclaimed at the same time. In the past 10 days, they had destroyed 3 groups of the Dongfu country's army. Yi Xing had killed 3 great grandmaster captains. They had great confidence in Yi Xing's archery skills. However, when they saw Lu Chuanxiao, their confidence was shaken and they started to panic. A half-step to martial sage was not on the same level as a great master. Yi Xing was calm and confident. Wei Qingxuan's expression did not change either. When the distance between them was about 1,500 steps, Yi Xing jumped off his horse and took out the piercing heaven bow and blue sandalwood arrow. With the Gale archery skill, he shot out a powerful arrow. The arrow was like a ray of light. In the blink of an eye, the distance of 1,500 steps was covered, and it was aimed at Rukuwa Xiao's throat. Rukuwa Xiao's lips curled into a cold smile. He urged his horse forward and without slowing down, he stretched out his hand and blocked the arrow in front of his throat. His palm was facing the arrow. Seeing that Rukuwa Xiao had blocked Yi Xing's arrow with his bare hand, Wan Xingliang and the rest were excited. They knew very well how powerful Yi Xing's arrow was. Even a 9th stage grandmaster could be sent flying by the terrifying power contained in the arrow if he used a weapon to defend himself. How could he block it with his bare hands? Especially when Rukuwa Xiao's hand was blocking his throat. If the arrow had pierced through his hand, it would have gone through his throat. If Rukuwa Xiao, a half-step martial sage, was killed, this group would be no different from the others. With Yi Xing's archery skills, the rest of them would not be a problem. However, Wan Xingliang and the rest had underestimated the strength of a half-step martial sage. Just as the arrow was about to pierce his palm, a ball of light suddenly appeared in Rukuwa Xiao's palm. It was as bright as the stars. As soon as the arrow hit the ball of light, it instantly stopped. There were no sparks or explosions like when it collided with a weapon. However, the arrow stopped in an instant. The defensive power of the ball of light was beyond everyone's expectations. Even with the terrifying power of the arrow, it could not penetrate it. At first glance, the ball of light in Rukuwa Xiao's palm was similar to Ren Xiaowu's origin returning force. However, it was much stronger than Ren Xiaowu's origin returning force. Yi Xing's arrow had a strong penetrating power. Even 10 Ren Xiaowu's origin returning force would be pierced through. However, the ball of light in Rukuwa Xiao's palm could not penetrate it. This is star essence? Wei Qingxian murmured. A half-step martial sage can only convert half of his inner strength into star essence. How can it be so powerful? Yang Yun was shocked. What should we do? Yixing's arrow can't hurt him. We are no match for him. Lu Chen frowned, his voice filled with fear. Let's fight with them. Even if we die, we have to drag someone down with us. Wan Xingliang's eyes showed no fear. The tragic state of Wanhe town was still fresh in his mind. He could not tolerate the East Fu country's army's evil deeds. Yixing's eyes flashed coldly. He raised his hand and took out another arrow. It was the exploding thunder arrow that Zishan Ho gave him to save his life. Rukawa Xiao urged his horse to run. With a swing of his hand, the arrow that was blocked by his star essence fell to the side. Rukawa Xiao could not help but sneer. Although Yixing's archery skills were strong, it was not enough for him. Yixing knocked the exploding thunder arrow on the piercing heaven bow and pointed it at Rukawa Xiao. At this time Rukawa Xiao was 1,000 steps away. The rest of the soldiers were 100 steps behind him. 1,000 steps, 900 steps, 800 steps, Rukawa Xiao rushed forward. The distance between him and Yixing was getting closer and closer. However, Yixing was not in a hurry to shoot the exploding thunder arrow. Within the shooting range of the peak power, the closer the distance, the shorter the arrow's time, and the harder it would be for the opponent to dodge. Although it was basically impossible for Rukawa Xiao to dodge it, Yixing still wanted to make sure that he could not dodge it. After all, there was only one thunderblast arrow, and he could only shoot it when he was absolutely certain that nothing would go wrong. 500 steps. When Rukawa Xiao was only 500 steps away from Yixing, he jumped off his horse and rushed towards Yixing with a speed that was several times faster than the demon horse's sprint. For a half-step martial saint, the distance of 500 steps would only take 2 to 3 breaths. At this moment, a streak of light flashed and Yixing also shot out the explosive thunder arrow that he had knocked on his bow. The exploding thunder arrow arrived in front of Rukawa Xiao in an instant. At this distance, there was no way for him to dodge. Rukawa Xiao did not think of dodging. He gathered celestial essence in his palm and grabbed at the arrow. The exploding thunder arrow exploded the moment it was blocked by the celestial essence. Boom! The explosion shook the sky. Lightning flashed, and a turbulent airwave exploded in the void, covering 100 steps in radius. Yixing used the exploding thunder arrow? The moment the exploding thunder arrow exploded, Zishan Ho, who was in Dongshan City, sensed it and immediately summoned the giant eagle with purple flame feathers on its head. Whether it was Yixing's group or the soldiers on the other side, they were all shocked by the explosion. They never expected that Yixing's arrow would have such terrifying power. In the explosion, Rukawa Xiao's scream was completely drowned out. The lightning flashed in the sky, and everyone saw Rukawa Xiao's charred body. His clothes tattered as he retreated. He spat out blood and was seriously injured. The hand he used to grab the exploding thunder arrow, together with his entire forearm, was blown to smithereens. Zishan Ho said that the exploding thunder arrow could kill any cultivator below the martial saint realm. And it was true. Rukawa Xiao, a half-step martial saint, was blown to such an extent that he was not far from death. However, Yixing did not give Rukawa Xiao any time to breathe. He immediately drew his bow and shot another arrow. Rukawa Xiao was still flying backwards due to the impact of the explosion when Yixing's arrow pierced his throat, killing him instantly. A half-step martial saint had fallen just like that. Wan Xingliang and the others were stunned. They never expected that the situation would take such a turn. Even a half-step martial saint was killed by Yixing's arrow. As for the soldiers of the East Fu nation, they were dumbstruck. This was an outcome that they had never expected. The great martial master was the first to react. He immediately abandoned his horse and ran away like lightning. However, no matter how fast he was not faster than Yixing's arrow. Yixing took out a blue arrow and shot it out with the piercing heaven bow. The middle stage great martial master might have been able to block Yixing's arrow if he had tried to block it. However, as he was running away, he was naturally killed by Yixing's arrow. The blue arrow instantly pierced his back. Kill. Wei Qingxian and the other 3 all reacted. Using their light body techniques, their figures were like lightning, rushing towards the Dongfu soldiers, while Yi Xing, another blue sandalwood arrow appeared in his hand, and he continued to shoot. This team had rushed to within 600 steps of Yi Xing's team. Wei Qingxian and the other three only took a few breaths to cross this distance. However, once Yi Xing drew his bow, no matter if it was a 7,000-man commander or an 8,000-man commander, they were all killed with one arrow. In less than 15 minutes, the formidable heroes team was completely annihilated. All 23 of them died. Never in his wildest dreams would Rukawa Owl have thought that the mission he accepted to wash Qingye village with blood did not allow him to succeed in killing Yi Xing. Instead, he sent himself and the entire team of formidable heroes to their deaths. Outside Dongshan City, Zishanho sat on the back of the purple flame eagle, flying towards Qingye village. Hua Tianfeng, 2 armies are fighting and the martial saints are retreating. What are you planning to do? Just as Zishanho left the city, a voice rang in his ears. It was a voice transmission from 1,000 miles away. Zishanho glanced towards the Dongfu army camp, and saw a black eagle as big as the purple flame eagle flying towards him. Zishanho glanced at it and retracted his gaze, ignoring it. The purple flame eagle continued to fly towards Qingye village. Hard work is still useful. Finish 3 chapters at 10 o'clock. Around 12 o'clock, I should be able to deliver the 4th chapter. Chapter 138. Outside Qingye village, Yi Xing's group of 5 were overjoyed. This was the 4th Dongfu army unit that they had killed. This time, not only did they kill a tribunus, 2 kiliarchs for centurions, they even killed a half-step martial saint deputy legion commander. Not only did they protect Qingye village, they also obtained a large amount of military merits and eliminated the Dongfu army, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Haha. Yi Xing, with today's military merits, you can obtain the 2nd-ranked tribunus honor medal, haha. Yang Yin was searching the corpses of the Dongfu army for their identification documents as he laughed. Yi Xing's military merits had already exceeded 50,000 after killing a few tribunus. It was enough for him to obtain the title of tribunus. Today, he killed a deputy legion commander, which increased his military merits by 50,000. It had already exceeded 100,000, and he could obtain the 2nd-ranked tribunus honor medal. Now Yi Xing's honor medal was still at level 7 Chiliarch. However, as long as he returned to Dongshan City and reported his military merits, he would be able to change his honor medal from level 7 Chiliarch to level 2 Tribunus. It was a jump of several ranks. Even the title of Chiliarch was something that many people could not obtain in their lifetime. The title of Tribunus was even more difficult to obtain. Not to mention, Yi Xing's military merits had reached level 2 Tribunus. It was indeed surprising and enviable. However, those who were in the same team as Yi Xing weren't surprised or envious at all. Instead, they were just happy. The more military merits Yi Xing has, the greater his contributions to the country. So many generals of the Dongfu army have been killed, and even a deputy legion commander has died. Their strength should have weakened a lot. We can return to Dongshan City now, and let the High Command organize a counterattack on the Dongfu army camp. We will definitely win this battle. Lu Chen's face was also full of joy as he said with a smile. Wan Xingliang's mind was still thinking about the miserable state of Wanhe village. Therefore he was not happy, but he was very excited. If we counterattack the Dongfu army's main camp, I'm willing to be the first to charge in and kill Guangdong. Before he could finish his sentence, Wan Xingliang felt his neck tighten, and he couldn't speak. The next moment his feet left the ground. Wan Xingliang's strange behavior shocked Yi Xing and the others. Yi Xing immediately scanned Wan Xingliang with his superbrain, and saw a faint figure holding Wan Xingliang up by the neck. Who is it? Yi Xing shouted. In an instant, a green sandalwood arrow appeared in his hand. He knocked the bow and aimed at the figure. A cold laugh sounded from Wan Xingliang's side. Then, a middle-aged man around 30 years old appeared before everyone's eyes. He grabbed Wan Xingliang's neck with one hand and lifted him up. Wan Xingliang could not resist at all. There was actually someone who had come to Wan Xingliang's side without them noticing. The others immediately felt their hair stand on end. However, they did not retreat. Instead, they took out their weapons and pointed at the man, shouting, "Let go!" Yi Xing's eyes were sharp and murderous, but more than that, there was a touch of shock. This was a martial sage. Although he did not reveal the aura of a martial sage, Yi Xing could determine his cultivation base through his superbrain scan. He was definitely a martial sage. There was no internal force in his body, only star essence. Yi Xing immediately thought of Dong Xuanma. Dong Xuanma's shadow assassination skill could make him invisible. This person could also make him invisible. It was very likely that he was from the Dongxian clan. When Dong Xuanma was invisible, Yi Xing scanned him with his superbrain, and he could clearly see his figure. However, the person in front of him just now was very blurry and faint. It was obvious that this person's shadow assassination skill was much more powerful than Dong Xuanma's. Even with his superbrain scan, it was difficult to detect him. He was definitely a martial sage expert. Qingxian, all of you back off. Yi Xing shouted. At this moment he was really panicking. Facing Luchuan Xiao, he had the explosive thunder arrow, so he was not afraid. However, the person in front of him was 10 times more terrifying than Luchuan Xiao. Luchuan Xiao was only a half-step martial sage, but the person in front of him was a real martial sage. He did not even know if he was a beginner, intermediate or advanced martial sage. Yi Xing's archery skills could not even threaten Luchuan Xiao. How could he deal with this martial sage? Moreover, he did not have the explosive thunder arrow now. Even if he had the explosive thunder arrow, Zishanho had only said that the explosive thunder arrow could kill martial artists below the martial sage level. It might not be able to threaten a martial sage. For the first time, Yi Xing felt powerless in front of a strong expert. Power. At this moment, Yi Xing yearned for power. For the past few days his life had been smooth. Whether it was a 7th level grandmaster, 8th level martial scholar, or 9th level martial scholar, he could kill them all with his archery skills. He could not help but feel complacent. Now it seemed that his complacency was laughable. His strength was nothing compared to a martial sage. Once he encountered an enemy of the martial sage level, he would be helpless and helpless. In the end, he could only put up a strong front and shouted at the other party, "Let him go." According to the war agreement, martial sages are not allowed to wipe their hands. Let him go. Wei Qingxian and the other 3 were shocked when they found out that the other party was a martial sage. They all took a few steps back. They had all witnessed with their own eyes how powerful a half-step martial sage was. Just by relying on his celestial essence, Luchuan Xiao was able to easily block Yi Xing's arrow. If not for Yi Xing's powerful special arrow, even Luchuan Xiao would not have been able to deal with it. They knew very well that the powerful special arrow could not be mass-produced. It was good enough that Yi Xing had 1 arrow. How could he have more? At this moment, whether it was Yi Xing or Wei Qingxian and the others, they were all panicking. They could not think of any way in the face of such an absolute difference in strength. Dong Xianing obviously did not take Yi Xing and the others seriously. He ignored Yi Xing and the other 3 and treated their words as if they were nothing. He slowly raised his other hand, which was holding a short blade. He looked at Wan Xingliang and said in a cold voice, "Little brat, you want to attack my East Fu army's camp? Hee hee. You won't be able to live." As he spoke, the short blade in Dong Xianying's hand slit Wan Xingliang's throat. In an instant, blood splattered. Wan Xingliang's body struggled violently, but he could not escape from Dong Xianying's palm. He could not make any sound. "No!" Yi Xing roared. Ever since he came to the Star Mainland, he had never been so furious. In Wanha town, Yi Xing was also furious when he saw the town full of corpses. However, the intensity of that fury was different from seeing his comrade die in front of him. The intensity of the latter was 100 times more intense. In the past 10 days, Yi Xing and the other 4 had been searching for the East Fu army. They had developed a deep friendship with each other. Although there were many people who fought with Yi Xing against the East Fu army in Dongshan City, Yi Xing only recognized these few people as his comrade. Wan Xingliang was one of them. Yi Xing thought that as a transmigrator, he would never shed a tear in the Star Mainland. However, he was wrong. Wan Xingliang's throat was slit in front of his eyes. Yi Xing was not only furious, but also sorrowful. His eyes were brimming with tears. Go to hell. After Wan Xingliang was killed, Yi Xing no longer had any scruples. He loosed the bowstring that had been drawn into a crescent moon. A blue sandalwood arrow shot out toward Dong Xianing. Dong Xianing did not even try to block Yi Xing's arrow. His body was instantly covered with a layer of celestial essence and starlight bloomed. When the arrow was only an inch away from Dong Xianying's body, it was blocked by the celestial essence and fell to the ground. A martial sage was indeed incomparable to a half-step martial sage. Lu Chuanxiao had to condense celestial essence in his palm to block Yi Xing's arrow. However, Dong Xianing used celestial essence to shield his entire body. Yi Xing's arrow could not get close to him. Even Lu Chuanxiao died in your hands. The Grand Marshal was right to send me to kill you small fries. Dong Xianing was still sneering. He did not even bother to enter the shadow kill state to deal with Yi Xing and the others. As he spoke, his figure flashed and the dagger in his hand pierced toward Wei Qingxuan's throat. Qingxian. Yi Xing was furious that Wei Qingxian was attacked. He roared and shot 3 arrows at the same time. Wan Xingliang was his comrade in arms, but Wei Qingxian was even more so. Moreover, his friendship with Wei Qingxian was more than 10 times deeper than his friendship with Wan Xingliang. The two of them had gone through life and death situations and had sex before. Moreover, the two of them had left a mark in each other's hearts. They had feelings that were deeper than friendship. Dong Xianying's speed was too fast. Wei Qingxian could not dodge in time. The dagger pierced her throat in an instant. Yi Xing's 3 arrows did not affect Dong Xianing at all. The celestial essence defense on the surface of his body was too strong. The arrows could not penetrate it at all. However, the moment the dagger pierced Wei Qingxuan's throat, it met with resistance. In an instant, dazzling starlight erupted from Wei Qingxuan's body. What kind of martial saint are you? You must have a death wish. Zishanho's voice suddenly rang out. The starlight that erupted from Wei Qingxuan's body turned into a huge palm and slapped at Dong Xianing. The dagger in Dong Xianying's hand was instantly knocked away. His expression turned to shock. The power of this palm was obviously left in Wei Qingxuan's body by Zishanho. It was activated when her life was in danger. Slap. Dong Xianing could not withstand Zishanho's palm at all. He was instantly pushed back dozens of meters by the palm print, and then slammed to the ground. A huge palm print appeared on the ground. Dong Xianing was deeply embedded in the soil and stone in the palm print, spitting out blood. The power of the palm print left by Zishanho was enough to kill the most ordinary martial saint. However, Dong Xianing was obviously not an ordinary martial saint. Although he spat out blood, he did not die. In the blink of an eye, Dong Xianing rushed out of the soil and stone and roared. Although he was injured, his injuries were not too serious. However, he was actually injured while killing a few small fries who were not even in the 8th level of the martial path. This infuriated Dong Xianing. As he roared, Dong Xianying's figure flashed toward Yang Yun, who was closest to him, like lightning. At the same time, he slapped at Yi Xing, who was second closest to him. In an instant, a palm print that was dozens of feet large slapped at Yi Xing. The 4th watch is over. If I work hard, I'll be able to erupt more. Many days ago, I said that I wanted the 4th watch. I've always wanted the 4th watch. Today, I've finally fought for my pride and done it. The Archer God must continue to fight for the first place in the monthly votes for the new book. It's not that the Archer God must be first, but for the pride in his heart. Fight for it. Beg for a monthly vote. Brothers, please advance hand in hand with me and contribute to the Archer God. Thank you. Chapter 139. When Wei Qingxian was attacked and the energy that Zishanho left in her body exploded, Zishanho immediately sensed it from 100 miles away. This caused Zishanho to frown, and a murderous intent appeared in his eyes. First, Yi Xing used the exploding thunder arrow, then Wei Qingxuan's life was in danger. It was obvious that Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian were in extreme danger. The life-saving trump card that he left for Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian was enough to kill any cultivator below the martial saint realm. It could even kill the most ordinary martial saint. If the trump card that he left behind could not kill the other party, then Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian must have encountered an extremely terrifying enemy. At the very least, it was an enemy of the martial saint realm. Martial saints were not allowed to interfere in the battle between two armies. If Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian were really attacked by the martial saints of the Dongfu country, Zishanho's eyes were filled with murderous intent. The Dongfu army would have to bear his wrath, a very serious wrath. Zishanho patted the back of the purple flame eagle, causing it to increase its flying speed to the maximum. It was like an arrow piercing through the clouds. Tens of miles behind Zishanho, Dubianzhan was riding a giant black eagle. He was also flying in the same direction as Zishanho, but in terms of speed, he was slightly slower. As a martial saint, Dong Xianying's palm print was as fast as lightning. Yi Xing could not dodge it. The palm print that was tens of feet wide was almost the size of a house wall. In front of this palm print, Yi Xing seemed extremely small. Boulder fist. At this moment, Yi Xing instantly abandoned his bow and executed a defensive fist technique. The other party's attack was too strong. It was impossible to use a soft martial technique to resolve it. He could only defend with all his might. No matter how ferocious his attacks were, Yi Xing remained unmoved like a boulder. Yi Xing's mastery of the boulder fist had reached perfection. Coupled with his silver body art that had reached perfection, his physical body was extremely tough. Even a half-step martial sage would not be able to injure Yi Xing with one strike. However, Dong Xianing was not a half-step martial saint. Instead, he was a martial saint. Furthermore, he was a 3-star martial saint. Under Dong Xianying's attack, Yi Xing's defense was destroyed as easily as crushing dry weeds. He immediately spat out blood and saw stars as he was sent flying like a cannonball. Although the defensive power of the boulder fist was not weak, it was not able to defend against all attacks. The offensive power of a martial saint was too strong. If one's cultivation was not high enough, no matter how perfect a middle-grade martial skill was, it would not be able to defend against it. Yi Xing. When Wei Qingxian saw Yi Xing being sent flying by the palm print, her expression changed greatly. She immediately pounced on Yi Xing. At the same time, Dong Xianying's figure appeared in front of Yang Yun in an instant. His palm was like a knife as he struck out horizontally. Yang Yun could not block Dong Xianying's attack at all. With a crack, the defensive long saber broke instantly. Dong Xianying's palm did not lose its momentum and struck Yang Yun's throat. Puff! Yang Yun spat out a long stream of blood and his body instantly shot backward. His eyes bulged and lost the luster of life. He died instantly. Yang Yun. Lu Chen's eyes were bloodshot. Hot tears filled his eyes as he roared. I'll fight it out with you. In the blink of an eye, Lu Chen rushed behind Dong Xianing and struck with the long saber in his hand. Clang! With a loud explosion, the long saber broke. However, the blade did not cut through the star essence defense. The half-saber in Lu Chen's hand was almost shaken out of his hand. The difference in strength between him and Dong Xianing was too great. Even a full blow from a 9th-grade grandmaster would not be able to hurt a martial sage. Moreover, Lu Chen was only a 7th-grade martial Dao master. Dong Xianing snorted contemptuously. He turned around and struck with his palm like a saber, striking Lu Chen's right shoulder instantly. Crack! Lu Chen screamed and spat out a mouthful of blood. The bones in his right shoulder were instantly crushed. Dong Xianying's palm was like a real saber, cutting several inches into Lu Chen's shoulder. Just a little more and his entire right arm would have been chopped off. Lu Chen felt a terrifying force strike his shoulder. Needless to say, he was in excruciating pain. Unable to stand, he bent his knees and smashed them hard on the ground. The sound of bones breaking could be heard. Wei Qingxian helped Yi Xing's upper body up. She realized that Yi Xing was severely injured. His breathing was weak and his expression was blurry. He was almost unconscious. Hearing Lu Chen's screams, Wei Qingxian looked back. Her eyes were filled with hot tears. Out of the 5 people in the team, she was the only one who was not injured. Out of the other 4, 2 had died while the other 2 were severely injured. Kneeling on the ground, Lu Chen could no longer care about the excruciating pain in his shoulder. With a crazed expression, he unleashed all of his strength at this moment. His left arm hugged Dong Xianying's leg tightly. Lu Chen looked at Wei Qingxian who was far away and roared. Don't care about us. Run. Who can leave? Dong Xianing scoffed and struck Lu Chen's head with his palm. Lu Chen's voice was silenced. Almost a third of his head was smashed into his chest. He died instantly. Ah! Wei Qingxian cried out in grief. Lu Chen wanted her to run for her life, but how could she abandon Yi Xing? With tears in her eyes, Wei Qingxian carried the half-conscious Yi Xing and ran far away with her lightness skill at its maximum. At this moment, Yi Xing's meridians were broken and his organs were shattered. All of his injuries were fatal. If not for the superbrain, he would have fallen into a coma and died. Although he was half-conscious, he was still conscious. Knowing that Yang Yun and Lu Chen had died one after another, tears fell from his eyes. Hatred. Yi Xing's heart was filled with hatred. Dong Xianing lifted his leg and flung Lu Chen's body away. However, even if Lu Chen was dead, he still held on to him tightly. It was as if he had grown roots and was not flung away. Scram! Dong Xianing roared and his powerful celestial essence vibrated. A terrifying force blasted out from his body and sent Lu Chen flying. However, Dong Xianing was like a flash of light, chasing after Wei Qingxian, who was running quickly with Yi Xing in her arms. He was much faster than Wei Qingxian. Soon he was behind Wei Qingxian and chuckled. You want to save someone when you're about to die? None of you can escape. As soon as he finished speaking, Dong Xianing had already slapped Wei Qingxuan's back. Dong Xianing sneered. Zishanho could at most leave a bit of power in Wei Qingxuan's body. Without Zishanho's power, it would be a piece of cake for him to kill this 7th-level martial path cultivator. Yi Xing's body was strong and his defense was strong. Even he was half dead from Dong Xianying's long-distance slap. Wei Qingxuan's defense was not as good as Yi Xing's. How could she withstand Dong Xianying's close-range slap? Wei Qingxian spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. However, the moment Wei Qingxian was hit, an invisible force suddenly surged from the depths of her mind and protected her body. Dong Xianying's slap was enough to shatter Wei Qingxuan's organs into pieces and kill Wei Qingxian instantly. However, it only made Wei Qingxian spit out a mouthful of blood, and was not seriously injured. The force of the slap was blocked by the invisible force that protected her body. Moreover, the invisible force had another effect. Dong Xianing only felt a terrifying force bounce back from Wei Qingxuan's body. The force was at least twice as strong as his slap. Dong Xianying's body was instantly sent flying backward. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and was heavily injured. Yi Xing's face heated up. He immediately realized that this was the blood that Wei Qingxian had spat out. This made him, who was about to lose consciousness, sober up a little. Let go of me. Escape by yourself. Yi Xing used all his strength to say this while he was still conscious. Wei Qingxian did not say anything. Tears welled up in her eyes as she stubbornly struggled to get up. She carried Yi Xing and continued to run forward. If they could escape, they would live together. If they could not escape, they would die together. At this critical moment, she did not die from the martial sacred's palm strike, nor did she suffer any serious injuries. She did not notice the strange force that had appeared in the depths of her mind. At this moment, she only had one thought in her mind, and that was to escape. Her will to live was extremely strong. Wei Qingxian ran forward faster and faster. Her mastery of Qinggong was also increasing. The force that had surged from the depths of her mind gradually merged into her body. The 8th star ring suddenly appeared in her dantian. In this critical state of life and death, her cultivation level broke through and she stepped into the 8th level of the martial path. At the same time, some images appeared in her mind. It seemed to be a set of footwork. This time Wei Qingxian did not lose consciousness. She instinctively synchronized the footwork that appeared in her mind as she ran. Her speed suddenly increased to a whole new level, and she became faster and faster. Dong Xianing, who had been sent flying, was shocked. He had never expected that Wei Qingxuan's body would have such a terrifying force. It was even more terrifying than the force that Zishanho had left behind. I want to see how much power you have in your body. I don't believe that I can't kill a mere martial master today. Dong Xianing spat out a mouthful of blood, and said with a twisted expression. He was infuriated by the repeated setbacks he had suffered from Wei Qingxian. Swoosh! Dong Xianying's figure was like lightning as he chased after Wei Qingxian. However, something that shocked him even more happened. In front of him, Wei Qingxuan's speed became faster and faster. She was almost on par with him, a martial saint. He was a 3-star martial saint, but he could not catch up to a martial master. No. She should be a martial master. Dong Xianying's eyes were spitting fire. Wei Qingxian had been attacked twice by him. Not only did she not die, but her cultivation level had also broken through a level. This was ridiculous. Dong Xianying kept increasing his speed and pushed his qinggong to the limit. He held his breath and swore that he would not stop until he had caught up to Wei Qingxian and killed her. The two of them, one chasing and one fleeing, did not close the distance between them. After about half an hour, Dong Xianying's heart suddenly tightened. Inexplicably, Dong Xianying felt a sense of fatal danger. Then a terrifying killing intent locked onto him. Swoosh! Dong Xianying's gaze instantly turned into terror. In his eyes, an arrow shot toward him from afar like a shooting star. Thank you, brothers, for your monthly votes. Today's explosion will continue. Chapter 140. As a 3-star martial saint, Dong Xianying could completely ignore an ordinary arrow attack. For example, Yi Xing's archery skills were definitely among the best among all archers below the martial saint level. However, Yi Xing's arrow could not break through Dong Xianying's celestial essence defense. However, Dong Xianying felt a fatal threat from the arrow in front of him. To be able to make him feel a fatal threat, the person who shot the arrow was at least a martial saint expert. Dong Xianying reacted instantly and his heart trembled. In Zishan County, there was only one martial saint in Luoxing Kingdom, and that was Zishan Ho, an advanced martial saint. How could Dong Xianying not be afraid of an arrow shot by an advanced martial saint? He was instantly scared out of his wits. The moment Dong Xianying felt threatened, his body turned in the air and shot to the side like lightning. At the same time, he used the shadow assassination technique and disappeared instantly. However, the arrow that was shot at Dong Xianying suddenly changed direction in the air, as if it had grown eyes. Whoosh! The arrow was too fast, like a flash of light. In an instant, a shrill scream was heard and Dong Xianying's figure suddenly appeared. There was an arrow in his chest. It was the arrow that had been shot from afar. Although Dong Xianying's celestial essence defense was extremely strong, the arrow's penetrative power was even greater. The tip of the arrow pierced through his chest and came out from his back. After the arrow hit Dong Xianying, it still carried a terrifying force and shot Dong Xianying's body backward. In the blink of an eye, he was nailed to a hillside dozens of meters away. Dong Xianying clutched his chest with both hands as blood flowed out of his mouth. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Although he had sensed a fatal danger and knew that the arrow was terrifying, he had never expected it to be so terrifying. He had dodged to the side and even entered the shadow assassination technique. He thought that the arrow would definitely miss, but who knew that the arrow would change direction in an instant and hit him directly? Dong Xianying opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but no sound came out. The light in his eyes faded away quickly. The power of this arrow was too terrifying. It had struck his heart, instantly extinguishing his life force and killing him with a single arrow. Dong Xianying's scream snapped Wei Qingxian out of her daze. She turned her head to take a look, but Dong Xianying's figure was nowhere to be seen. Wei Qingxian scanned the area and soon found Dong Xianying's corpse on a hill in the distance. At this moment, the cry of an eagle came from the sky ahead. A huge eagle with purple flame-like feathers on its head was rushing towards Wei Qingxian from several li away. Don't be scared. This marquis is coming. Just as Wei Qingxian was in shock, Zishan Ho's voice came from the back of the purple flame eagle. Marquis. Hearing Zishan Ho's voice, Wei Qingxuan's face immediately revealed a pleasantly surprised expression, rejoicing that she had survived a calamity. Wei Qingxian hurriedly shouted, Marquis, quickly save Yi Xing. The purple flame eagle landed in front of Wei Qingxian. Zishan Ho jumped down from the eagle's back with a solemn expression. He immediately took out a pill and fed it to Yi Xing. Yi Xing suddenly felt a cooling sensation. He swallowed it down his throat, and the intense pain in his organs quickly eased. The vitality in his body became active again. Yi Xing did not faint because the superbrain had scanned his body. He knew that if he fainted he would definitely die, so he forcefully maintained a trace of consciousness. He could not guarantee that if he died this time, he would be able to come back to life in another world. Therefore, as long as there was a trace of hope, Yixing had to keep it up. Only the super brain could maintain a trace of consciousness under such a heavy injury. Otherwise, it would not have been able to hold on and would have fainted long ago. Now that the vitality in his body was finally active again, the string in Yixing's heart finally loosened. He only felt his vision turn black, and his extremely exhausted brain completely fainted. After Zishan Ho fed Yixing the pill, he checked Yixing's fat pulse. Wei Qingxian asked anxiously, "How is Yixing?" "Marquis. His life is not in danger, but his injuries are very serious. It will be difficult for him to recover." Zishan Ho retracted his hand. His expression was solemn, and his eyes contained a terrifying murderous intent. The people of Dongfu actually dared to send out a martial saint. Such despicable and shameless people. Don't blame me for being angry and slaughtering their 200,000 strong army. Slaughtering my Dongfu nation's 200,000 strong army? Hua Tianfeng, do you have the life to do that? A voice came from afar. Wei Qingxian looked over and saw a giant black eagle landing beside Dong Xianying's corpse a few hundred meters away. Jean Watanabe jumped down from the giant eagle's back. He glanced at Dong Xianying's corpse with a cold glint in his eyes. Hua Tianfeng, how dare you kill my Dongfu nation's martial saint? Today, I will send you to the underworld. Zishan Ho looked at Jean Watanabe and walked forward with his 2 wooden legs. Jean Watanabe, you must be the mastermind behind today's matter. Before slaughtering your 200,000 strong army, I will take your worthless life. Ha 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 ha. Jean Watanabe laughed wildly. Hua Tianfeng, do you think you are still the Hua Tianfeng from 10 years ago? If it were 10 years ago, you would have the right to say this. But now, even if you recover your cultivation as a high-level martial saint, you are just a crippled person. As for me. As he spoke, Jean Watanabe released his cultivation. His aura surged. Behind him, 8 starry vortexes appeared one after another. As for me, I am already a high-level martial saint. Moreover, I am an 8-star martial saint, a realm higher than you. In the past, you trampled me under your feet. Today, I will cross the border and kill you, Hua Tianfeng, as easily as killing a dog. Ha 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 ha. Jean Watanabe laughed wildly. He was close to Zishan Ho in age, and belonged to the same generation. When they were disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Dongfu sect respectively, Jean Watanabe's cultivation and strength were inferior to Zishan Ho's. He had been stepped on by Zishan Ho more than once and suffered heavy injuries. He had even almost lost his life. However, when Zishan Ho had been a 7-star martial saint, he had been plotted against and his legs had been crippled. In Watanabe Jean's opinion, Zishan Ho had been crippled for the rest of his life. Even if his cultivation recovered, his legs would be crippled. As for Jean Watanabe, his cultivation had increased in the past 10 years, and he had finally become an 8-star martial saint. The difference in strength between a 7-star martial saint and an 8-star martial saint was like the difference between a martial Dao master and a martial Dao master, or even greater. In Jean Watanabe's opinion, even if Zishan Ho's legs were intact, a 7-star martial saint would definitely not be his opponent. As for Zishan Ho's cultivation breaking through to a higher realm, it was not that Jean Watanabe did not think about it, but he completely rejected the idea. With his legs crippled and his meridians blocked, it was already good enough that he could recover his cultivation. How could he continue to cultivate and break through to a higher realm? Impossible. However, nothing was absolute. Jean Watanabe thought it was impossible, but the truth was that it was possible. Zishan Ho's face was full of disdain. His aura surged as he released his cultivation. One starry vortex after another appeared behind Zishan Ho. There were a total of 9 starry vortexes. 9-star martial saint, 7-star, 8-star, and 9-star martial saints were called high-level martial saints. However, 9-star martial saints had another name, peak martial saints. No, impossible. Jean Watanabe's expression changed drastically. There was a trace of fear in his eyes as he exclaimed, "Your legs are crippled and your meridians blocked. How can you still cultivate? Moreover, your heavenly fate is only an 8-star orange fate. How can you become a 9-star martial saint? This is impossible." He had thought that Zishan Ho was a 7-star martial saint with crippled legs. As an 8-star martial saint, it would be easy for Jean Watanabe to kill Zishan Ho. That was why Jean Watanabe had asked Dong Xianying to kill Yi Xing's group of 5. If Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian were people Zishan Ho valued, they would definitely have some life-saving means left behind by Zishan Ho. When the life-saving means were used, Zishan Ho would be able to sense it. This way, Zishan Ho would be lured away from Eastern Mountain City. Although Jean Watanabe had said that the East supporting sect was not afraid of a sect war with the East supporting sect had a better way to deal with the falling star sect. Killing Zishan Ho in Dongshan City in front of so many people would definitely cause a war between the sections. However, if they lured Zishan Ho to this desolate place and killed him, no one would see him. Even if the falling star sect suspected the Dongfu sect, there would be no evidence. Not to mention, as long as he killed Zishan Ho, as well as all the witnesses, Jean Watanabe could still accuse Zishan Ho of breaking the national war agreement by killing the East Fu country's martial saint. This way, they would be able to stand on the side of reason. However, Jean Watanabe did not expect that Zishan Ho was not a 7-star martial saint, but a 9-star martial saint. Jean Watanabe's actions were simply suicidal. Impossible? Jean Watanabe, you are also someone who has opened your eyes. In this world, there are too many possibilities. Don't you understand that the impossible can become possible? Zishan Ho walked towards Jean Watanabe step by step, his voice gradually becoming colder. Since you are seeking death, I will send you to the Yellow Springs, and then let your East supporting sect's 200,000 soldiers be buried with you. Jean Watanabe's eyes flashed with a trace of fear, but he quickly regained his composure and shouted, Hua Tianfeng, even if you are a 9-star martial saint, you are a crippled one. Do you really think you can defeat me? Although his words were firm, Jean Watanabe's body was retreating, and he leaped towards the giant black eagle, wanting to escape on it. However, the giant black eagle suddenly jumped up and clawed at Jean Watanabe. His mount suddenly attacked him crazily, which shocked Jean Watanabe. He retreated and avoided the giant eagle's attack. Jean Watanabe looked at Zishan Ho, and saw that 2 green vortexes had appeared in his eyes. Both of his eyes had turned green. So you have obtained the Qingyan ancient lands. Jean Watanabe was shocked and exclaimed. The fear in his eyes deepened, but before he could finish his sentence, he couldn't continue. Jean Watanabe looked at Zishan Ho's green eyes, and suddenly could not control his brain. He slapped his own chest. Bang! This slap was extremely heavy, and with a loud explosion he immediately spat out blood. Just as Jean Watanabe could not control himself, the giant black eagle behind him once again clawed at his head. Chapter 141. With a roar, Watanabe forcibly regained control of himself and rolled to the side. However, he was half a second too late. Although the giant black eagle missed Watanabe's head, it grabbed his shoulder. At this time, Watanabe did not use celestial essence to protect his body, and the eagle's sharp claws immediately tore off a large piece of flesh, exposing the bones of his shoulder. Hua Tianfeng, if you dare to kill me, my cousin will not let you go. Watanabe roared after a miserable groan. Watanabe had more than one cousin, but Zishan Ho naturally knew which cousin he was talking about. It was the sect master of the Dongfu sect, Watanabe Xiong. The head of a sect was an existence that was far more terrifying than a martial saint. Watanabe Xiong, don't you think it's too naive to threaten me at this time? Zishan Ho's voice was cold and merciless. The blue vortex in his eyes was spinning faster and faster. Besides, did I kill you? Even if Watanabe's eyes were no longer looking at Zishan Ho, he still felt an invisible force controlling him, making it difficult for his brain to turn and control his body. Such a terrifying mind control technique was the most bizarre and impossible to guard against. Zishan Ho did not make a move, and Watanabe Xiong, an 8-star martial sage, was already difficult to resist. Watanabe Xiong's mount was only equivalent to a beginner martial sage, and the subjective consciousness of beasts was weaker than that of warriors, so it was more susceptible to mind attacks. It was completely controlled by Zishan Ho. Watanabe Xiong felt that he could not control himself, and wanted to attack himself. He fiercely bit his tongue. and the pain made him sober up instantly. He suddenly changed his attitude and begged for mercy. Hua Tianfeng, please spare my life, spare my life. You've lived your life in vain. Zishanho shook his head indifferently. Bang! Watanabe Xiong channeled his celestial essence and punched himself in the chin. In an instant, Watanabe Xiong's body flew backward, his chin a bloody mess, and he spat out broken teeth and blood. At the same time, Watanabe Xiong's mind was awakened at the same time. However, at this time, the giant black eagle's claw came from behind him. Watanabe Xiong's retreating body took the initiative to be caught by the eagle's claw. The moment Watanabe Xiong regained consciousness, the eagle's claw grabbed his head, and the sharp claws directly pierced his skull. Watanabe Xiong's shrill screams, his body twitching violently, his eyes were full of horror. In less than 2 breaths' time, Watanabe Xiong's body Xiong. Until his death, Watanabe Zhan's eyes were filled with fear and regret. His original plan was to kill Zishanho, but he didn't expect that he would be so weak in front of Zishanho. Zishanho didn't even move a finger, and he died under the attack of Zishanho's mental eye technique. In particular, the fatal blow came from his mount, which was something that Watanabe never expected. Xiong died, but Zishanho was not sad or happy. His expression was still serious as he murmured, "It's time for the Dongfu country to pay the price." Zishanho returned to Yixing's side, picked up Yixing, and jumped on the back of the purple flame eagle. Wei Qingxian also followed. Zishanho whistled, and the purple flame eagle soared into the sky and flew towards Dongshan City. Behind them, the giant black eagle also flew up and followed behind the purple flame eagle. It had been forcibly subdued by Zishanho. The martial saint-level giant eagle flew through the clouds like an arrow, and in less than a quarter of an hour, it returned to Dongshan City. Yixing's injuries were too severe. He was still in a coma and would not wake up for a while. Zishanho had arranged for him to be taken care of in the commander's mansion. Wei Qingxian also suffered a minor injury, and was also taken to the marshal's mansion to recuperate. Soon the horn for assembly sounded in Eastern Mountain City. Not long after, other than a few guards, the 150,000 soldiers in Eastern Mountain City, including the Eastern Mountain City Garrison Army, 50,000 reinforcements, mercenaries, Purple Mountain Academy teachers and students, all gathered together. The High Command Department gave an order that made everyone excited and shocked to attack the East Fu Army camp. The soldiers of the Eastern Mountain City all had a ball of fire in their hearts. They had been waiting for the day to counterattack the Dongfu army, and upon receiving the order, they were naturally excited, and their morale soared. The city gates opened and 150,000 soldiers marched out. The sound of the bugle horn signaling the attack spread far and wide. Inside the Dongfu army's main camp, Watanabe Bo knew that the Falling Star army was about to attack their main camp, so he immediately gathered his army and went out to fight. Even though they had lost 40,000 men in the previous siege, in terms of military strength, the Dongfu army was still not inferior to the Falling Star army. However, Watanabe Hiroshi clearly did not realize what kind of battle this was. The two armies had just faced each other when 2 giant eagles landed in front of the two armies. One was Zishanho's purple flame eagle, and the other was naturally Watanabe Zhan's black giant eagle. When Watanabe Bo saw the black giant eagle, his expression changed drastically, turning pale in an instant, his eyes filled with fear. Watanabe Zhan's mount had actually fallen into the enemy's hands. Then, there was an 80 to 90% chance that Watanabe Zhan had fallen. Thinking that the martial saints had already fought and that Watanabe Zhan had fallen, Watanabe Bo was afraid that Dong Xianing would not be able to escape unscathed. If the enemy martial saints attacked, the Dongfu army would be completely annihilated. Before Watanabe Bo could give the order to retreat, Zishanho, who had just landed on the back of the purple flame eagle, waved his hand and an arrow shot out from his sleeve, shooting into the Dongfu army. Watanabe Bo was instantly killed. Not only Watanabe Bo, but the arrow seemed to have grown eyes as it made a few turns, killing a few half-step Marshal Saint Corps commanders and Deputy Corps commanders. In just 2 breaths, the arrow returned and was kept by Zishanho's sleeve. In the next moment he waved his hand and another arrow shot out from his sleeve. In the Dongfu army, half-step martial saints fell one after another, all killed by a single arrow. As a peak martial saint, Zishan could easily kill ordinary martial saints, not to mention using his archery skills to kill martial artists below the martial saint realm. It was like squashing an ant. He could kill several half-martial sages with just a casual wave of his arrow. In the battle between the two armies, the commanders, corps commanders, and other high-ranking commanders of the Dongfu army were killed one after another. How could they fight this war? Soon, the Dongfu army was thrown into chaos. The Dongfu army looked at the dead Watanabe Bo, Rukuaji, and the rest in horror. At this moment, Zishan Ho, who was on the purple flame eagle's back, waved his hand and shouted, "Kill! Leave no one alive!" The Dongfu army first massacred the town, killing a large number of people from the Fallen Star Kingdom. Then they sent out a martial saint to injure his disciple, almost killing him. In his anger, Zishan Ho wanted to massacre the 200,000-strong Dongfu army. Of course, the 200,000-strong army lost more than 40,000 people in the siege. Now there were only 150,000 people left. Kill! Following Zishan Ho's roar, all the soldiers of the Fallen Star Kingdom roared in unison, shaking the 9 heavens. Woo! The bugle horn was blown in an instant. The Fallen Star Kingdom's army marched forward. At this moment, 2 eagle cries were heard. The purple flame eagle and the black giant eagle soared into the sky, rushing towards the Dongfu army. These 2 giant eagles were equivalent to martial saints. They were incomparably powerful. For these soldiers, they were invincible. The 2 giant eagles quickly rushed into the Dongfu army's formation. Their defensive power was comparable to martial saints. No matter what kind of attack the Dongfu army used, it could not hurt them. Even a large crossbow could not shoot down a single feather on their body. Their demonic power was comparable to star essence. Their defensive power was very strong. Naturally, they rampaged through the Dongfu army's formation. Wherever the 2 giant eagles rushed, there would be a large number of Dongfu army soldiers falling. No matter what kind of cultivation they had, even if it was a 9th great grandmaster, they could not block a casual claw of the 2 giant eagles. On the back of the purple flame eagle, Zishan Ho was still waving his hand from time to time, shooting out and retrieving arrows from his sleeves. Every time, several high-ranking officers of the Dongfu army would fall, causing the Dongfu army to lose much of their fighting strength. Without waiting for the Fallen Star army to attack, the Dongfu army had already fled in defeat, throwing away their armor. The Falling Star army quickly caught up, and a dense barrage of arrows was shot from afar. If they had lined up neatly, the shield bearers would have been able to block most of the arrows. However, the Dongfu army had suffered a great defeat. Their backs were facing the Falling Star army, and they were defenseless. A wave of arrows rained down, and the Dongfu army fell down neatly. A wave of arrows killed at least thousands, or even tens of thousands of Dongfu army soldiers. With such an unequal force, the result was obvious. The 150,000 Dongfu army soldiers were harvested like wheat. They were completely annihilated. Not a single one escaped. The 200,000 Dongfu army that invaded Zishan County were basically annihilated. Only a few small teams that sneaked into the back of the Dongfu army were left. But without the threat of the Dongfu army, the Fallen Star Kingdom could send out a large number of soldiers to search. Under the pressure of the army, not a single one of the small teams of the Dongfu army could escape. In the end, the 200,000 Dongfu army soldiers could not escape the fate of being annihilated. Of course, compared to the death of the 2 martial saints, Dong Xianing and Watanabe Zhan, who was the cousin of the Dongfu king, the Western marshal who attacked the Fallen Star Kingdom this time, the annihilation of the 200,000 Dongfu army soldiers was nothing. In the next few days, the Fallen Star army carried out a huge sweep at the back of the Dongfu army. Zishan Ho even sent out the black giant eagle that was comparable to a martial saint to accompany them. In the end, all the teams that sneaked into the back of the Dongfu army were wiped out. Not a single Dongfu army soldier escaped. The war in the other counties was still going on, but the war in Zishan County had already ended. The 50,000 reinforcements returned to their original positions. The temporarily recruited mercenaries and the teachers and students of the Zishan Academy also returned to their respective places after distributing the war merits. Yi Xing was pulled by a luxurious beast carriage, leaving Dongfu Army City and heading towards Zishan County City. Yi Xing, who was unconscious, felt that he had fallen into a huge black whirlpool. The power from all directions was attracted by the black whirlpool and gathered towards him. His injuries were miraculously getting better day by day. Chapter 142. A few days later. Zishan County City, Zishan Marquis Residence. Yi Xing was placed in the guest room of the Marquis Residence, under the protection of a specialist, receiving the best treatment. His injuries were gradually improving, but he was still unconscious. Or rather, he was not unconscious because he had regained consciousness, but his consciousness was immersed in the dark vortex, so he could not wake up. Even though Yi Xing had not woken up, Wei Qingxian was always by his side, taking care of him. Anyone could see that she had extraordinary feelings for Yi Xing. On this day, Zishan Ho came to Yi Xing's room, but he did not come for Yi Xing. After taking Yi Xing's pulse, Zishan Ho said, "Qingxian, come with me, I'll take you to see someone." Wei Qingxian walked towards Zishan Ho, but Zishan Ho said again, "You're leaving Zishan County and for a long time. You won't be able to see Yi Xing." Wei Qingxian was surprised. "Why?" Zishan Ho said, "I'll introduce you to a better place, the Spirit Moon Sect. The Spirit Moon Sect is stronger than with your Heaven's Fate. You can directly become an elder's personal disciple if you enter the Spirit Moon Sect, which will make you stronger faster." Wei Qingxian glanced at Yi Xing lying on the bed. "Can't I enter the Falling Star Sect with Yi Xing? Since I'm a peak martial saint, there should be an elder willing to accept me as a personal disciple. Why must I go to the Spirit Moon Sect?" Zishan Ho shook his head. "I have enemies in Then no matter how high your Heaven's Fate is, you'll still be a target of attack. It won't be good for you. Moreover, with your relationship with Yi Xing, entering the same sect will be a disaster for Yi Xing. If you two want to be together, you must become stronger, otherwise it will only end in tragedy. Going to the Spirit Moon Sect is good for you, good for Yi Xing, and good for your future, understand?" Wei Qingxian nodded, looking at Yi Xing with reluctance. "Yi Xing's injuries?" Zishan Ho said, "His injuries have already improved, and even his cultivation has improved. You don't need to worry about him. When he wakes up, the injuries he suffered this time will be a great fortune for him on the martial path." Wei Qingxian walked to Yi Xing's side, gently stroking the latter's face and murmured, "Yi Xing, get better quickly, we'll become stronger together, and advance on the martial path hand in hand." Zishan Ho walked out of the room. "Let's go, don't let Daoist Yin Yu wait too long." Wei Qingxian followed Zishan Ho, riding the purple flame eagle out of the Zishan Ho residence. Arriving at a large mountain 50 li north of the Zishan County City, Cloud Gazing Peak. Cloud Gazing Peak was more than 1,000 meters high. The west side was a cliff, as if it had been split open by a blade. It was very steep. On top of the cliff, there was a red bird perched. Its wings were like fire, and its tail was long. It looked very beautiful, its size not inferior to Zishan Ho's golden flame eagle. Beside this red bird, there was a beautiful woman dressed in white, who looked to be around 30, with an otherworldly aura, making it difficult for people to look at her. In terms of appearance, this beautiful woman in white was not as good as Wei Qingxian, but she had a mature charm and otherworldly aura, making her even more attractive. The purple flame eagle also landed on top of the cliff, and Zishan Ho jumped down with Wei Qingxian. From the looks of it, this beautiful woman in white was younger than Zishan Ho, but Zishan Ho was very respectful in front of her. "Senior." Zishan Ho cupped his fists and bowed, giving a junior's greeting. "This is Wei Qingxian." Junior used the level 2 blood fate stone to test her. Her fate is a 9-star orange fate, and the orange light is very strong. Junior speculates that her fate is not only that, she might have reached the enlightened master fate. Wei Qingxuan's eyes flashed. This was the first time she knew that there was an enlightened master fate above the martial saint fate. The beautiful woman in white was Spiritual Moon Sect's spiritual master Yin Yu. Although she looked to be around 30, she was more than twice as beautiful as Zishan Ho. Taoist Yin Yu's expression was as cold as ice. She didn't like Zishan Ho, But after hearing Zishan say that Wei Qingxuan's heaven's mandate might have reached the enlightened being level, her cold eyes flashed with a glimmer of color. Enlightened Master Fate? Spiritual Master Yan Yu looked at Wei Qingxian and said, "From now on you are my disciple, there is no need to cover your face with a veil." Spiritual Master Yan Yu's meaning was that no matter how beautiful Wei Qingxian was, as her disciple, no one would dare to have any bad intentions, so she could show her face to others. Disciple Wei Qingxian greets Master. Wei Qingxian bowed and took off the veil on her face. Spiritual Master Yan Yu suddenly showed a trace of surprise and murmured, "Her appearance is even better than Zilan's." When Zishan heard Zilan's name, a trace of sadness flashed through his eyes. Spiritual Master Yan Yu sighed. "You should continue to cover your face. A woman who is too beautiful is a disaster, not a blessing. She is destined to have many misfortunes." Sigh. Wei Qingxian pursed her lips and put on the veil again, covering her face. At this time, Spiritual Master Yan Yu waved her hand, and a blood fate stone flew out and landed in front of Wei Qingxian. "Test it and see if your fate has reached the yellow fate stone." For an ordinary fate stone, the blood fate stone emitted a red light and was called the red fate stone. For a martial saint fate stone, the blood fate stone emitted an orange light and was called the orange fate stone. For an enlightened master fate stone, the blood fate stone emitted a yellow light and was called the yellow fate stone. Different grades of blood fate stones could only measure a limited number of fate stones. A level 1 blood fate stone could only measure a normal fate stone. A level 2 blood fate stone could measure a martial saint fate stone, and a level 3 blood fate stone could measure an enlightened being. The reason why fate stones were valued so much was because the fate stones represented the level one could reach on the martial path. For example, if one had an orange fate stone, one could at least become a martial saint. The number of orange fate stones represented the number of martial saints. This was a realm that one was destined to reach without luck. Therefore it was called fate stones. Some people were destined to be ordinary martial artists when they were born. Some people could become martial saints when they were born. There were even some who had a yellow fate stone and could become enlightened masters when they were born. This was fate. It was predestined. However, nothing was absolute. A martial artist's aptitude was not only related to fate stones, it was also related to the astrology. Therefore, having a low fate stone did not necessarily mean that one would not have a bright future. There were also people who had a low fate stone and made great achievements on the martial path. Possessing a powerful astrology could also allow a martial artist to walk further on the road of martial arts without being limited by the mandate of heaven. However, the mandate of heaven and the astrology were often proportional. That was to say, those with a high mandate of heaven would often have a powerful astrology, and those with a low mandate of heaven would often have a weak astrology. Those with a low fate stone and a strong astrology, or those with a high fate stone and a weak astrology, were all special groups. They were not the norm. In the end, there was still a saying. Nothing was absolute. Even if one had a low fate stone and a weak astrology, it did not mean that one would not have a bright future. As the saying went, no matter how high one's aptitude was, it could not be compared to luck. In the martial world, there were always treasures and opportunities that could make the impossible possible. Although they were rare, they were not non-existent. For example, Zishanho's legs were crippled. It was fortunate that he could recover his cultivation. If he wanted to continue cultivating and increase his cultivation, it would be impossible under normal circumstances. However, his cultivation had increased by 2 realms, from a 7-star martial saint to a 9-star martial saint. This was turning the impossible into a possibility. Although one's destiny was the greatest, there were far too few martial artists that could change their destiny through lucky chances and treasures. Compared to those with lower destiny and higher astrology, there were far fewer. Not only were they 1 in 10,000, but they were also 1 in a million, 1 in 10 million, and 1 in 10 million weren't even enough to describe them. Those with a high fate stone would have a 100% chance of success in the future. As for those with a low fate stone, it would be difficult for 1 in 10,000 people to have a bright future. Therefore, to sects or experts, the fate stone was the most important criterion. It was impossible to give up a genius with a 100% chance of success, just because of a 1 in 10,000 chance. As for why Yi Xing was accepted as a disciple by Zishan Ho, the first reason was because his archery skills were profound, and he could inherit Zishan Ho's legacy. The second reason was because Yi Xing was a 2-star heaven's mandate. To be able to become a martial Dao master was already one of the top 10,000 talents. Wei Qingxian looked at the blood life stone in front of her with anticipation. She naturally hoped that her fate stone would be as high as possible, so that she could cultivate to a higher realm in the future and obtain stronger strength. She stretched out her right hand and pressed it on the blood life stone. In an instant, the blood life stone sensed it and emitted a bright light. First, it was a red light, and then the 9-star slots on the blood life stone lit up. When all 9-star slots lit up, the color of the light quickly changed. In the first star slot, the light turned from red to orange. One by one, the lights changed and finally, all 9-star slots turned orange. Whether it was Wei Qingxian, Zishan Ho, or Taoist Master Yanyu, their gazes became brighter at this moment, and their spirits were lifted. Whether or not she was a perfected human fate stone would be revealed soon. The orange light in the 9-star slots became stronger and stronger, until it was almost blinding. Suddenly, the light in the first star slot changed from orange to yellow. Wei Qingxian was overjoyed. Zishan Ho and perfected Yanyu's eyes widened. Taoist Master's Mandate of Heaven. Wei Qingxian was truly Taoist Master's Mandate of Heaven. She was destined to be a perfected human. This was too shocking. Many perfected persons only had a 9-star orange fate stone, and some even had a 7 or 8-star orange fate stone. They only became a perfected human after going through many life and death adventures, and obtaining many opportunities. On the other hand, a perfected human fate stone did not require any opportunities. As long as one had a cultivation method, they would be able to become a perfected human even if they directly absorbed the vitality of the stars. One could imagine how many people would be envious of such a perfected human fate stone. Unfortunately, no matter how envious they were, it was still someone else's perfected human fate stone. They could kill the other party, but they could not transfer their perfected human fate stone to themselves. After the first star slot turned yellow, the light on the blood life stone changed again in just 2 breaths. The second star slot also turned yellow. After another 2 breaths, the third star slot also turned yellow. This caused Zishan Ho and Taoist Master Yanyu's eyes to once again reveal shock. Seeing that the blood life stone was still shining, they wondered, just how far has Wei Qingxuan's perfected human fate stone reached? Chapter 143. When the light in the 4th star slot turned yellow, perfected Yanyue and Zishan Ho were both horrified. 4-star yellow fate meant that Wei Qingxuan's future achievements would be at least a 4-star perfected person. However, be it the Spirit Moon sect, or the Dongfu sect, the strongest warrior was only a 3-star perfected person. A 4-star perfected person meant that once Wei Qingxian grew up, she would be above all the people in the nearby countries and sections. As long as Wei Qingxian didn't die during her growth, she would definitely become the strongest person in this area in the future. Whichever sect had a 4-star perfected person would become the strongest force in this area. At this moment, Zishan Ho felt a little regretful. Although he had enemies in he was still a member of the Falling Star sect. It would be a huge loss for the Falling Star sect if such a strong person was given to the Spirit Moon sect. However, the regret in Zishan Ho's heart disappeared in a flash. Wei Qingxuan's talent was heaven-defying, but she might not be able to grow up in the Falling Star sect. If she was harmed, Zishan Ho didn't want to see that happen. In the Spirit Moon sect, Wei Qingxian was the personal disciple of perfected Yanyu, and didn't have any enemies. It was much safer than in the Falling Star sect. However, when the 5th, 6th, 7th star slots on the blood life stone turned yellow one after another, Zishan Ho didn't have the slightest bit of regret. Perfected Yanyu's expression was one of shock and worry. Wei Qingxuan's destiny was so high that it was beyond their imagination. Her future achievements would far surpass everyone in this area. Once Wei Qingxian grew up, she could destroy a country and a sect by herself. If the other sects knew that the Spirit Moon sect had such a heaven-defying monster like her, who would be at ease? They would probably do everything they could to kill Wei Qingxian. The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. Many people couldn't tolerate her. Finally, the 9-star slots on the Blood Life Stone all turned yellow, and the light was very strong. The 9-star slots were all filled with yellow light. That was the 9-star yellow life, and he would at least become a 9-star perfected one in the future. Moreover, the grade 3 Blood Fate Stone could only test a yellow fate. Wei Qingxuan's 9-star orange fate was so strong, which meant that there was another possibility. Her heavenly fate might be even higher. Zishan Ho and Taoist Master Yen Yu were already numb from shock. At this moment, they were not pleasantly surprised by Wei Qingxuan's heaven-defying aptitude. Instead, they were worried. 9-star yellow fate. It wasn't just the few sects nearby that couldn't tolerate him. Wei Qingxuan's destiny pill had been leaked. Perhaps all the sects in the Qingyan region wouldn't tolerate him. Even the faraway 9 great sects might be alarmed. The number of people who wanted Wei Qingxian dead would always outnumber the number of people who wanted her alive. Moreover, the number was much greater. This was because as long as Wei Qingxian chose a sect, all the other sects would do everything in their power to kill her. If she chose not to join a sect, then it would be even more dangerous. There would be no one in the world who would protect her. Let go. Taoist Master Yen Yu appeared beside Wei Qingxian like a ghost and grabbed Wei Qingxuan's wrist, separating Wei Qingxuan's hand from the Blood Fate Stone. At the same time, Taoist Master Yen Yu's gaze swept around, vigilantly observing the surroundings. Zishan Ho also scanned the surroundings. His eyes were faintly suffused with a layer of green light. After confirming that there was no one around to see Wei Qingxuan's destiny, the two of them let out a sigh of relief. The Blood Fate Stone instantly dimmed, and was put into Taoist Master Yen Yu's storage ring. She looked at Wei Qingxian with a serious expression. Your destiny can't be revealed to anyone. Remember, no one, not even the people closest to you. Wei Qingxian was in the midst of being happy about her powerful destiny pill. Suddenly, she was stunned by Taoist Master Yen Yu's serious words. However, she quickly reacted and nodded vigorously. Zishan Ho was afraid that Taoist Master Yen Yu wouldn't take Wei Qingxian in because of her high destiny pill. But now he was delighted. Taoist Master Yen Yu's actions proved that she wouldn't leave her alone. Taoist Master Yen Yu said, "Perhaps you don't know how much danger your destiny pill will bring to you. If you reveal it, there will be a large number of people who are much stronger than me who will kill you. Therefore, you must not reveal your destiny pill to anyone." This was the second time Taoist Master Yen Yu had told Wei Qingxian not to reveal her destiny pill. Wei Qingxian was someone who understood the gravity of the situation. She nodded. "I understand, Master. I won't tell anyone." Taoist Master Yen Yu said, "With such a destiny pill, I'm afraid the small pond of the Spirit Moon sect won't be able to hold you. Sooner or later, you will fly high. However, since you and I are fated to be master and disciple, as long as you are in the Spirit Moon sect, I will protect you. Come with me." After saying this, Taoist Master Yen Yu didn't look at Zishan Ho. She pulled Wei Qingxian towards the red bird, Firecloud Sparrow. Wei Qingxian was carried by Taoist Master Yen Yu onto the Firecloud Sparrow. The Firecloud Sparrow spread its wings and instantly soared into the sky. "Master Ho, take good care of Yixing." Wei Qingxuan's voice came from the Firecloud Sparrow. Her voice gradually became softer and softer. Regarding the matter of keeping Wei Qingxuan's destiny pill a secret, Taoist Master Yen Yu had never told Zishan Ho. Zishan Ho also didn't remind Taoist Master Yen Yu. Although the relationship between the two was cold, it was obvious that they trusted each other. "It's actually a 9-star yellow destiny pill. Yixing, she's from a completely different world from you. Can you catch up with her?" Zishan Ho sighed. He rode on the purple flame eagle, and also left Cloud Gazing Peak. Zishan Ho was still very optimistic about Yixing. Although Yixing's destiny pill was very low, in Zishan Ho's opinion, Yixing completely had the hope of becoming a martial saint. Moreover, he would become a very powerful martial saint. Even though Wei Qingxian had a 9-star orange destiny pill, Yixing would still be able to catch up with Wei Qingshuan's footsteps if he worked hard. The two of them were quite compatible. However, today Wei Qingshuan's destiny pill was as high as a 9-star yellow destiny pill. Moreover, this might not be the end. This made Zishan very pessimistic about the future of Yixing and Wei Qingxian. He sighed in his heart. Martial saints had their own circle of martial saints, and enlightened masters had their own circle of enlightened masters. If Wei Qingxian became a top expert among enlightened masters, and Yixing could only dominate among martial saints, it would be very difficult for the two of them to be together. At that time, Wei Qingxian would get to know many outstanding young men like her. If Yixing could not catch up with her, how could he compare to those talented young men? Would Wei Qingxian still remember him? Even if Wei Qingxian remembered, and was willing to be together with Yixing, Yixing would have endless troubles. He would need Wei Qingshuan's protection to live a stable life. If a man needed a woman to protect him, how would he be laughed at? Such a life would definitely not be happy. Yixing, if you are not willing to give up, then you have to work hard. Let's not talk about surpassing Qingxian. You have to at least be able to catch up with her on the path of martial arts. Only then can the two of you walk together beautifully. This requires you to create a miracle. I look forward to seeing you create a miracle. Although Zishan was not optimistic about the future of Yixing and Wei Qingxian, as Yixing's master, he still hoped that Yixing could create a miracle. Another few days passed, and Yixing still had not woken up. However, his injuries had already recovered. Furthermore, Zishan was surprised to find that Yixing's cultivation had actually broken through while he was unconscious, becoming an 8th-level martial master. This was out of Zishan's expectations. Originally, Yixing's internal organs and meridians were all severely damaged. Even if Zishan did his best to treat him, it would still be very difficult to recover. However, the recovery of Yixing's injuries was surprisingly good. In just a few days, there were signs of improvement. In less than 10 days, he had already completely recovered. Even his cultivation base had broken through to the next realm. This made Zishan amazed. Perhaps a miracle can really happen on him. Zishan thought to himself. Yixing's injuries had healed and his cultivation had broken through. This was already a miracle. However, what Zishan was referring to was clearly not this miracle. The miracle that Zishan was referring to was much more difficult than this. It required Yixing, a 2-star red life, to be able to keep up with Wei Qingxian, a 9-star yellow life, on the path of martial arts. This was too unreliable. Yixing's consciousness was still in the pitch-black whirlpool. He could feel that he was constantly becoming stronger. This pitch-black whirlpool was devouring all the energy in the surroundings, nourishing him. Therefore, even if Yixing's cultivation had broken through to the 8th level of the martial path, his cultivation was still increasing. The 8th star ring in his dantian was dim at the beginning, but it gradually became dazzling. The Dongfu nation's army of 200,000 that had invaded Zishan County had been completely annihilated. Furthermore, Martial Saint Dong Xianing and Western Martial Dubianzhan had also died. This caused the Dongfu sect master to be furious. He ordered the Falling Star sect to hand over Zishan and let the Dongfu sect deal with him. He also wanted the Falling Star sect to compensate for the loss of 2 martial saints and 200,000 soldiers. Otherwise, he would start a sect war with the Falling Star sect. However, Zishan attitude was unyielding. He said that the martial saints of the Dongfu nation had broken the rules and attacked in the country war. Furthermore, the Dongfu nation's army had been ruthless, massacring villages and towns. He was furious and attacked, killing the 2 martial saints of the Dongfu nation and massacring the Dongfu nation's army. If the Dongfu sect wanted to regain their dignity, they could send any martial saint to have a one-on-one duel with him. What had happened in Zishan County spread throughout the Falling Star country. Naturally, it was applauded by almost all of the Falling Star country, especially Zishan's unyielding attitude, which made the Falling Star country applaud. In a moment, Zishan's name resounded throughout the Falling Star country. In the past, Zishan's name was not well known. Even if they knew him, they would only think of him as a crippled marquis. Today they finally understood that Zishan was so powerful. Even the western marshal of the Dongfu nation, the 8-star Marshal Saint Debian John, had died in his hands. This made the Falling Star country's people shocked and excited at the same time. What made them even more excited, what made their blood boil, was the challenge issued by Zishan Ho. With a crippled body, he dared to challenge all the martial saints of the Dongfu nation. What kind of courage did this require? Other than his enemies, the Falling Star country respected him. Once Zishan Ho's name spread, his identity was quickly exposed. It turned out that Zishan Ho was the genius disciple of the Hua Tianfeng. He was the leader of that generation of disciples. This caused an uproar in the Falling Star country. To the Falling Star country, the Falling Star sect was a supreme existence. This made Zishan Ho even more famous. Today, I have to ask for a leave of absence from my brothers. I won't be able to update anymore. Little Adam, the 888 Alliance Master, has arrived in Shenyang. Little Adam is the Alliance Master of my 3 works. He has always been very supportive of chocolate, and I am indebted to him for hosting me in Changsha several times. Now that he has arrived in Shenyang, I have to be a good host and entertain him. I'm afraid I won't have time to write tonight. Brothers, please don't worry. There will be an explosion later. Although there are only 2 updates today, brothers, please don't forget to vote. Voting at this time shows our affection for the arrow god. Haha. Strive to break through 50 votes today. Chapter 144. Chang'an County Leaping Horse Plain was the border between the Falling Star country and the East Fu country. The Leaping Horse Plain, which stretched for hundreds of miles, was flat. It was supposed to be a land for farming, but because it was between the 2 countries, it was barren and overgrown with weeds. Today there were many experts from the Falling Star country and the East Fu country gathered on the Leaping Horse Plain. Most of them were martial saints, and there were even sect elders of the immortal realm. Obviously, something big was going to happen. It was impossible for the East Fu country's sect master to ask the Falling Star sect to hand over Zishan Ho. So he sent the Invincible Marquis to challenge Zishan Ho. The Invincible Marquis was an extraordinary marquis in the East Fu country. He was known as the first marquis of the East Fu country. Otherwise, how could he be called invincible? Only advanced martial saints could be called marquis. Invincible among marquises was basically the strongest among martial saints. They were powerful figures who dominated among peak martial saints. Although Zishan Ho was a peak martial sage, his legs were crippled. It was already surprising that he could kill Du Bianzhan, an 8-star martial sage. The East Fu nation had sent out an invincible marquis, who was one of the strongest peak martial sages. Naturally, they had made a foolproof plan. Even if the Falling Star country did not hand over Zishan Ho, the East Fu country's sect master would not let him go. He would kill Zishan Ho according to Zishan Ho's suggestion. Zishan Ho himself had said that he would challenge any martial saint of the East Fu country. If the invincible marquis of the East Fu country came out, Zishan Ho would have to accept. On the Leaping Horse Plain, the experts on both sides stood dozens of miles apart. The area between them was where Zishan Ho and the invincible marquis were going to fight. Both of them had arrived and walked out from their respective camps. The invincible marquis of the East Fu country was 7 or 8 years younger than Zishan Ho. He was in his prime. The title of invincible marquis was not permanent. It could only be given when one was at the peak of their prime. If the invincible marquis was old, he would be given another title, and the invincible marquis would be given to the strongest martial saint. In this way, the invincible marquis was the first marquis of the East Fu country, the strongest martial saint. Zishan Ho's marquis was much weaker than the invincible marquis. Dense celestial essence condensed into a pair of wings behind the invincible marquis, which gave him the ability to fly for a short time. With a single glide he could glide for hundreds of meters. After a few leaps, the invincible marquis had already reached the center of the field. He extended his right hand, and a 9-foot-long spear appeared in his hand. It was shining with a precious light, and was no ordinary weapon. With the spear in hand, the invincible marquis's aura became even sharper. His essence energy surged into the sky like billowing smoke, scattering the clouds in the sky. Zishanho's forward speed was much slower than Marquis Invincible's. Marquis Invincible had already reached the center, while Zishanho had only walked a few hundred meters. When Marquis Invincible took out his treasured spear, Zishanho waved his hand, and a great bow appeared. This bow shone with precious light, not the slightest bit inferior to the treasured spear in the hands of the invincible Marquis. It was also not an ordinary weapon, but a spirit weapon of a very high grade. With the spirit weapon bow in his hand, Zishanho's aura instantly changed. Similarly, his essence surged like smoke signals, shooting straight into the sky and causing the weather to change. Even the surrounding wind was affected by Zishanho, becoming sharp and whistling, as if it was cutting through the void, becoming extremely terrifying. In the next moment, Zishanho raised his right hand, and a shining arrow appeared in his hand. He knocked the arrow on the bow. At this moment, Zishanho's aura was even sharper than before. Marquis Invincible immediately felt a terrifying sense of danger, and his heart tightened. This was the sign of death. At this moment, the distance between the two was still about 5 li. For a martial saint, this was a very far distance, but for a martial saint archer, this was already within the range of their shooting range. Therefore Zishanho stopped. The distance was too far, and Marquis Invincible had enough time to dodge the arrow. It was too difficult to kill him with one arrow, but within 5 li, one arrow was enough to kill Marquis Invincible. When Zishanho took out his bow and arrow and pointed it at Marquis Invincible, outsiders could not feel how terrifying Zishanho was, but Marquis Invincible instantly felt it. If he allowed Zishanho to shoot this arrow, his life would be in danger. However, Marquis Invincible did not retreat. Instead he roared loudly, his voice shaking the 9 heavens. The spirit weapon in his hand shone brightly, and the celestial essence wings on his back shone brightly. Whoosh! With a flap of the celestial essence wings, Marquis Invincible's speed was like a sharp blade, and in the blink of an eye, he rushed forward for more than a li. He wanted to close the distance so that Zishanho's arrow would not be a threat, and then kill Zishanho. However, at this moment, Zishanho had already shot the arrow on the bow. Roar! The arrow shot out, but there was no sound of breaking through the air. Instead, it was accompanied by a tiger's roar, like a stream of light, shooting in front of Marquis Invincible. In the eyes of outsiders, the arrow was like a stream of light, accompanied by a tiger's roar. But in Marquis Invincible's eyes, there was no arrow, but a white tiger condensed from starlight, roaring and rushing over. The fear of death in Marquis Invincible's heart intensified. However, as a martial saint, he naturally would not be frightened by the fear in his heart. Instead he glared and shouted, "Kill!" The light of the treasure spear exploded, and the spear stabbed out with endless terrifying power, stabbing at the rushing white tiger. Clang! The tip of the arrow and the spear collided in an instant. Sparks flew. In Marquis Invincible's eyes, the starlight white tiger's power did not diminish. Its bloody mouth was roaring, and its terrifying tiger claws were waving. An endless power was transmitted from the spear. Whoosh! Marquis Invincible suffered a heavy blow, and his body could not stop retreating. The brilliance of the spirit weapon spear rapidly dimmed. In the blink of an eye, the spirit weapon spear was slapped aside by the starlight white tiger, and the starlight white tiger continued to roar forward, drowning Marquis Invincible in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the experts of the two countries watching the battle from afar only saw Marquis Invincible's treasure spear being knocked away by an arrow. And then, the arrow did not diminish, and it pierced through Marquis Invincible's throat. Blood spurted out from Marquis Invincible's throat, and he staggered back with the treasure spear in his hand. In the end, Marquis Invincible stamped his treasure spear on the ground, stabilizing his body. But there was only so much he could do. After stabilizing himself, Marquis Invincible held the spear in his right hand, and stood with his legs apart. His body was ramrod straight, but his shocking aura instantly dissipated, and the color of life in his eyes rapidly faded. He was already dead. As the first Marquis of Dongfu, he was also an outstanding talent of his generation. But he was shot to death by an arrow before he could even get close to Marquis Zishan's body. His heart was filled with unwillingness. Even if he died, he would not fall to the ground. Even after death, he would still be indomitable. and could not be considered to have tarnished his reputation. Time passed slowly. Almost a month had passed since Yixing fell into a coma. His injuries had long recovered, and the 8th star ring in his dantian was already shining brightly. This indicated that Yixing's cultivation had already reached the late stage of the 8th level. On this day, the dark vortex that trapped his consciousness finally disappeared, and Yixing woke up. He opened his eyes, and the scene that entered his eyes made him extremely surprised. He sat up from the bed with a shudder. Where was this place? The environment in front of him was extremely unfamiliar. It was a place that he had never been to before. In just a moment, Yixing reacted to everything that had happened before he fell into a coma. Wan Xingliang was dead. Yang Yin was dead. Lu Chen was also dead. This caused his heart to ache, and a terrifying light burst out from his eyes. His thoughts continued. He had suffered a fatal injury, and Wei Qingxian had carried him to escape, while the martial saints of Dongfu country were chasing after them. How was Wei Qingxian? Yixing's heart instantly tightened. He seemed to have a vague impression that Wei Qingxian was vomiting blood, and the warm blood was spat on his face. This caused Yixing's heart to ache, and tears faintly flashed in his eyes. His murderous intent was terrifying. There had never been a moment where his hatred towards Dongfu country was so intense. An obsession appeared in his heart. In this life, he must destroy Dongfu country. Only then would he be able to live up to the deaths of his 3 comrades, Wan Xingliang, Yang Yun, and Lu Chen. Even though he was in a half-conscious state after being heavily injured, his powerful superbrain still had some intermittent memories. Wei Qingxian was not caught by the martial saints of Dongfu country. In the end, Zishanho arrived and fed him a pill. Then he completely forgot about what happened after. Remembering Zishanho, Yixing's tense heart finally calmed down. Since Zishanho had arrived, then Wei Qingxian should not be in danger. However, those 3 comrades of his would never come back again. Young Master Yi, you're awake? After Wei Qingxian left, someone had been taking care of Yixing, waiting for him to wake up. Now that Yixing had woken up, a beautiful servant girl of about 20 years old immediately ran over. This is... Yixing collected his thoughts and asked. This is Zishanho's residence. The Marquis ordered that when young Master Yi wakes up, immediately inform him. Young Master Yi, rest here first. I will immediately report to the Marquis. After saying that, the servant hurriedly ran out. This was Zishanho's residence, which meant that Master had saved him, and he was completely safe. However, he did not know how the battle in Dongshan City was going. Yixing got down from the bed and suddenly stopped moving, his expression surprised. He remembered that his injuries were extremely serious, almost to the point of death. However, he seemed to be completely fine now, without a single injury. Furthermore, the superbrain scanned his body, and the 8 star rings in his dantian made Yixing even more surprised. His cultivation had actually broken through to the 8th stage of the martial path, becoming a martial master. Moreover, it was the late stage of the 8th stage. This is too inconceivable. I suffered such heavy injuries, but I'm completely fine. Instead, my cultivation increased by so much? How long was I unconscious for? Yixing looked at each other, unable to understand. Suddenly, Yixing's eyes lit up. He recalled that when he was unconscious, he seemed to have fallen into a dark whirlpool. That dark whirlpool was constantly absorbing energy from all around to nourish him. Yixing immediately understood. His injuries had healed and his cultivation had increased greatly. It was very likely that it was related to that dark whirlpool. What was that dark whirlpool? Yixing had no idea, but he had a vague feeling that it might be related to his astrology. Just as Yixing was thinking, Zishanho entered the room. Thank gods for 527 red votes, becoming the 5th leader of the Archer God. Thank you. Today's monthly votes are very low. Brothers, please work harder. Today's explosion will continue. Chapter 145. Master. Seeing Zishanho, Yixing immediately went to greet him. You're finally awake. Zishanho smiled, his face filled with joy. He was in a very good mood. Yixing's injuries had clearly healed, but he had remained unconscious. This was something that Zishan-ho had been worried about. Now that Yi Xing had finally woken up, the worry in his heart was naturally relieved. Master, how long have I been unconscious for? Yi Xing asked. 27 days. Your injuries should have healed long ago, but you still haven't woken up. If you still haven't woken up, Master would have suspected that you would never wake up again. Zishan-ho patted Yi Xing's head and had Yi Xing sit down on a nearby chair. 27 days? Yi Xing was shocked. He obviously did not expect that he had been unconscious for so long. My consciousness should have woken up long ago, but I was trapped in a dark vortex. Master, I felt that the dark vortex was absorbing the surrounding energy to nourish me. This should be related to my cultivation. What's going on? Zishan-ho sat down and gestured to Yi Xing. After Yi Xing also sat down, he said, the path of martial arts is broad and profound. Among them, astrology is the most complex. What I know, compared to the entire path of martial arts, is only a hair from 9 oxen. I don't understand your situation, but Master guesses that it should be related to your astrology. Yi Xing also guessed that it was related to his astrology. Zishan-ho's answer clearly did not resolve his doubts. Yi Xing's thoughts quickly shifted away from himself. He asked, Master, why was I sent to Zishan-ho's residence? How is the battle in Dongshan City? What about Qingxian? How is she? Zishan-ho smiled faintly. The battle in Dongshan City ended the day you were unconscious. The Dongfu nation broke the rules and dared to send out a martial saint. Master naturally could only retaliate. Don't worry, I have already killed the martial saint Dong Xianing who chased after you and the mastermind behind Dong Xianing. The Dongfu nation's army of 200,000 was completely annihilated. They have already paid the price and suffered the consequences. As for Qingxian, she... Speaking of Wei Qingxian, Zishan-ho's tone clearly changed. Yi Xing's reaction was extremely sharp, and he naturally noticed the change in Zishan-ho's tone. He thought that something had happened to Wei Qingxian, and immediately asked in shock, what happened to Qingxian? If Wei Qingxian was only a faint mark in Yi Xing's heart before, then ever since she never abandoned him and risked her life to escape with Yi Xing, her position in Yi Xing's heart was no longer as simple as a faint mark. Instead, he left behind an unforgettable mark, a mark that could never be forgotten. From that moment on, Wei Qingxian had truly entered Yi Xing's heart. Zishan-ho said, you don't need to worry, Qingxian is fine. However, she has already been accepted as a disciple by the Spirit Moon Sect's Taoist master Yanyu, and is heading towards the Spirit Moon Sect. You won't be able to see her for a while. Spirit Moon Sect? Master Yanyu? The sudden appearance of this unfamiliar term made Yi Xing surprised. What kind of place is the Spirit Moon Sect? Who is Master Yanyu? You came from a small place like Qingye village, so you don't know much about martial arts. It's time for you to know more. Zishan-ho said, the Spirit Moon Sect is the same as the Falling Star Sect and the Dongfu Sect. It is a sect that controls the Spirit Moon Country. In the vicinity of the Falling Star Country, including the Falling Star Country, there are a total of 6 countries that are controlled by the 6 great sections. They are the Flying Cloud Sect, the Spirit Moon Sect, the Dongfu Sect, the Blood Ghost Sect, and the Wind Sect. 6 great sects, 6 countries? Yi Xing now felt like a frog in a well that had suddenly jumped out of the well one day, only to discover, wow, the world was actually so big. However, Yi Xing was only surprised for a moment before returning to normal. He was not that country bumpkin Yi Xing, but the transmigrated Yi Xing. He was very clear that the earth was round. Besides land, there were oceans and an even wider sky. The world that Yi Xing had come into contact with before was only within the Falling Star Country. Later on, there was the Dongfu Country. Now he knew about the Flying Cloud Country, the Spirit Moon Country, the Blood Ghost Country, the Wind God Country, and other countries. After the shock, his mind opened up. Yi Xing said, besides these 6 great sects, there should be other sects, right? Zishan-ho nodded with a smile. You are quite open-minded. That's right, not only are there more, but there are also many, countless sections. The entire star continent is boundless, no one knows how big it is, and no one knows how many sects there are. Zishan-ho's tone was somewhat melancholy. When talking about the vastness of the world, even a martial saint would feel insignificant, like a speck of dust. Without waiting for Yi Xing to continue asking, Zishan continued, as a martial artist's strength increases, he will be able to come into contact with a wider world. Martial artists below the martial saint realm, even if they are martial masters of the 9th level, can only survive within the boundaries of their country. If they leave their country and go to another country, it will be very dangerous. There is almost no survival ability. If you become a martial sage, your ability to survive will be stronger. You will be able to travel to a wider world. Basically, you will be able to survive in a region. The 6 major sects that I mentioned just now are only a small region. Strictly speaking, there are a total of 10 major sects and 10 countries in the entire Qingyan region. Even martial masters didn't know how big the Green Cloud Mountain Range was. It turned out that the Green Cloud Mountain Range was much bigger than Yi Xing imagined. Although he had been to the Green Cloud Mountain Range several times, he once thought that he had gone deep into the Green Cloud Mountain Range. But now, it seemed that the places he had been to weren't even 1/10,000th of the Green Cloud Mountain Range. The Falling Star Country was one of the 6 countries in the south of the Green Cloud Mountain Range. In the entire Green Cloud region, there were a total of 10 countries, 4 big countries and 6 small countries. And the Green Cloud region was only one of the regions of the True Xian domain. The entire True Xian domain was definitely much bigger than the Green Cloud region. In the True Xian domain, there were even 9 great countries. Yi Xing understood these geographical issues after hearing it once. However, he still didn't understand what martial saint and true master were. He only heard one point. True masters were stronger than martial saints. It was like the difference between martial saints and ordinary martial artists. Yi Xing asked, "Master, what is a true master?" According to Master, only true masters have the qualifications to travel the world. Could it be that there are martial artists stronger than true masters? Zishan nodded. According to what Master has heard, there are a total of 5 martial realms. Star Tempering Realm, Star Vortex Realm, Star Dipper Realm, Astral Reaching Realm, and Star Sea Realm. Different realms have different names. Star Tempering Realm is Ordinary Martial Artist, Star Vortex Realm is Star Marquis, Star Dipper Realm is True Master, Astral Reaching Realm is Venerable, and Star Sea Realm is King. The strongest martial artist Master has seen was only a true master. I have only heard of venerable masters in legends. I have heard that venerable masters have the strength to move mountains and fill seas. As for king masters, I have never heard of them. However, I presume that they are much more frightening than venerable masters. Yi Xing's expression froze. Previously, he had thought that martial saints were very awesome existences. Only after hearing Zishan talk about true masters, did he realize that true masters were even more awesome. In his opinion, true masters should be super awesome existences. However, after hearing Zishan detailed explanation, there were actually venerable masters above true masters. They were even more frightening, enough to move mountains and fill seas. However, even venerable masters were not the most awesome. There were still kings above them. Just how powerful were they? Even though Yi Xing was a transmigrator, at this moment, he could not help but be shocked to the point of being dumbstruck. This world was far more frightening than he had imagined. Compared to the people of Earth, venerable masters who could move mountains and fill seas were practically immortal-like existences. This world, there can't really be gods, right? Yi Xing thought inwardly. This thought caused his heart to beat rapidly. Zishan voice caused Yi Xing to wake up from his shock and reverie. Ordinary martial artists have low horizons. Even martial saints are hard to meet. Therefore, martial saints are said to be miraculous. In reality, martial saints are only a title for us ordinary countries. According to the title of martial artists, Star Vortex Realm should be Star Marquis. Crying for a monthly ticket. Chapter 146. Martial Saint. Xingho. Yi Xing made a comparison in his heart. Martial saint sounded domineering and awesome. The word saint was not simple, it represented the highest meaning. Martial saint meant that one was at the peak of martial arts. No wonder Zishan said that martial saint was only a title in a normal country. Compared to enlightened masters, venerables and kings, Star Vortex Realm was considered the beginning of martial arts. How could one be worthy of the two words martial saint? Those in the know were still okay, but if those experts from other countries who had seen the world knew about this, they would laugh their heads off. Zishan laughed self-deprecatingly. Qingyun District, compared to the entire star continent, is only a small place. There are many places like Qingyun District in the star continent. Actually, there are also many places that call Xingho a martial saint. Yi Xing sighed. In the past, this disciple's dream was to reach the peak of martial arts and become a peerless expert like the martial saint. After seeing Master teach the three martial saints from Purple Sun Academy a lesson, only then did I realize that the difference in strength between martial saints was so great. Thus, I wanted to become a peerless expert like Master. Now it seems that my previous dream was too naive. Wanting to reach the peak of martial arts is easier said than done. Peak of martial arts? Zishan couldn't help but feel melancholy. Martial arts have no limits. If you don't even know where the peak is, how can you reach it? Yi Xing laughed. The more ignorant you are, the more arrogant you are. On the contrary, the more you know, the more insignificant you feel. Zishan looked at Yi Xing in surprise. At such a young age, your words have a profound meaning. However, young people should have the vigor of young people. Don't be too mature. Young people are full of vigor and vigor, like the rising sun. Some things, just do as you please. Often, some things that seem impossible, when you really do it, you will realize that there is still a trace of possibility. Your martial heart has always been firm. Don't give up halfway just because you know too much. Yi Xing nodded. That's impossible. There is a saying in my hometown, the further your heart, the further you can go. No matter how difficult it is to reach the peak of martial arts, I will never give up. I will walk down this path until I reach the peak of martial arts. I won't give up. Zishan was once again surprised. Your hometown? Yi Xing's hometown was Greenleaf Village, which belonged to Azure Sky City. Wasn't that within the Purple Mountain County? Zishan did not know that Zishan Prefecture had such a proverb. Yi Xing blinked. Actually, it was my father who told me. Zishan didn't think too much about it. Instead, he nodded and said, You can go as far as your heart can go. Haha. Your father's words were well said. It's in line with the concept of archery. Yi Xing. Archery. Zishan said. Correct, the path of archery is about the power of the heart. The second realm of archery is the following your heart realm. The arrows you shoot out can move according to your will. The stronger your heart, the more nimble your control, the higher your accuracy, and the greater your strength. Yi Xing's spirit was lifted. He had cultivated the revolving arrow technique to perfection. He could distort the trajectory of the arrows he shot out, and could even turn them around. However, to say that the arrows would move according to his will, that was absolutely impossible. Basically, once the arrow left the bowstring, its trajectory would be determined based on the strength of the moment it was shot out. No matter if it was a straight shot or a curved shot, the trajectory would be fixed the moment it left the bowstring. Even if it was fused with the wind, it would only make the arrow's speed faster and appear more erratic, making it difficult for people to determine the trajectory. In reality, the trajectory was already fixed. And the arrow moving according to one's will meant that after the arrow left the bowstring, it could still change its trajectory according to one's will. What kind of terrifying archery was this? This meant that even if others saw the trajectory of your arrow and avoided it, you could still control the arrow to change its trajectory and still hit the target. This level of archery was simply godly. Yi Xing asked himself, he hadn't even touched the surface of this level of archery. Yi Xing said in shock. Master's archery has reached the realm of following your will? Zishan nodded and said, Just barely. Yi Xing, your attainments in archery are also not low. You have already reached the first level of transformation. From tomorrow onwards, you will come to the Wangqing slope 20 li away from the city every day. I will teach you higher level archery and eye techniques. After saying this, afraid that Yixing didn't know what eye techniques were. Zishanho paused for a moment, then explained. For an archer, there is a very important prerequisite, and that is eyesight. Although the higher the cultivation, the stronger the eyesight. However, the increase in eyesight brought about by a normal increase in cultivation does not meet the requirements of an excellent archer. If you can't see far enough, and your eyesight exceeds a certain distance, it will become blurry. If you don't even know where your target is, how can you hit it? Even if you have reached the realm of following your will, without a strong eyesight, you will not be an excellent archer. Eye techniques are martial arts that strengthen one's eyesight. There are both auxiliary and offensive types. The eye technique I am going to teach you is called Azure Cloud Eyes. It is a type of eye technique that combines both attack and support. It is a martial art that master obtained from the Azure Cloud Ancient Land. It is a top secret. You must remember, after practicing it, do not show it to others. Do not use it unless you need to kill someone. Yixing nodded. Yes, master. Zishanho stood up and said. The matter of you being my disciple, you and I know. Do not expose it in front of outsiders. Go to the Wangqing slope every day. Do not be followed. Go back to the academy and wait for me at the Wangqing slope every morning. There is only a month's time before the Falling Star sect will recruit new disciples. I can only teach you for a month. How much you can learn will depend on your own comprehension. Yixing left the Zishanho residence. He felt a pair of sharp eyes watching him from afar. It was Wang Feng. Yixing glanced back and saw him. Yixing felt that Wang Feng's gaze was not friendly. This made Yixing feel a little strange. He did not know what he had done to make Wang Feng unhappy. Could it be because of Vice Principal Wang? Wang Feng was Vice Principal Wang's nephew. Yixing thought for a long time, and could only think of this reason. Yixing did not know that Wang Feng had always been drooling over Wei Qingxian. However, Wei Qingxian had never looked him in the eye. Wang Feng did not go to the eastern mountain city to participate in the battle. After hundreds of years, the Wang clan finally had a genius descendant with the martial Saint Tianming. This was a future martial saint. He would never agree to let Wang Feng go to the battlefield. Without going to the battlefield, Wang Feng naturally did not know of the friendship between Yixing and Wei Qingxian. However, after Yixing was seriously injured and was moved to the Zishan Academy, Wang Feng knew that Wei Qingxian had always been taking care of Yixing. Everyone in the Zishanho residence knew that Wei Qingxian had feelings for Yixing. This naturally made Wang Feng extremely jealous. Even though Wei Qingxian had suddenly disappeared one day, and no one knew where she went, Wang Feng's jealousy of Yixing did not decrease at all. In particular, Zishanho also took great care of Yixing. Not only did he move Yixing to the most luxurious guest room in the Zishanho residence, he also gave Yixing the best treatment, and forbade anyone to disturb him. Wang Feng was no exception. This made Wang Feng feel dissatisfied. Of course, if he did not feel jealous of Yixing because of Wei Qingxian, Yixing being treated well by Zishanho as a wounded soldier who had gained a lot of merit on the battlefield was a very normal thing, and Wang Feng would not feel bad because of this. However, once there was jealousy in one's heart, any small factor was enough to make a person inexplicably resentful. Yixing did not mind Wang Feng's unfriendliness, and instead returned a kind smile. Wang Feng was Zishanho's disciple and adopted son, so he could be considered Yixing's senior brother. Although he did not know why Wang Feng seemed to dislike him, Yixing did not want to have any conflicts with him. It was not that Wang Feng made Yixing look at him differently, but that he was giving face to his master, Zishanho. Senior brother Yi, you've finally recovered. Senior brother Yi, you're the most famous person in the Zishan Academy. Everyone in the Zishan Prefecture knows about you. In one battle, you killed so many high-ranking generals of the Dongfu Nation, and received the rank 2 10,000 Men Commander Honor Medal. When Yixing returned to room 175, Wu Yuan and Ma Bo both excitedly congratulated him. Rank 2 10,000 Men Commander Honor Medal? Yixing was surprised and immediately took out his honor medal. As expected, the rank 7 Chiliarch Honor Medal was gone and replaced with the rank 2 10,000 Men Commander Honor Medal. It could be seen that while he was unconscious, his battle achievements had been recalculated and his honor medal had been replaced. The 10,000 Men Commander Honor Medal was not easy to obtain. One had to kill at least 5 enemy 10,000 Men Commanders to obtain it. Even a rank 9 Martial Master would have a hard time obtaining it. Yi Xing was only a rank 7 Martial Master at the time, and he was only 16 years old. Moreover, he received the rank 2 10,000 Men Commander Honor Medal, so it was very sensational. Yi Xing took out 2 silver star fruits and gave one to each of them. He said, Eastern Mountain City was defended by everyone's concerted efforts. I couldn't have done it alone. You guys have contributed a lot as well. Your cultivation should be more or less consolidated now. These 2 silver star fruits are for you. I wish you all the best in becoming martial Dao masters soon. When Yi Xing went to the battlefield to gain experience, Wu Yuan and Ma Bo, as his followers, naturally did not fall behind. The 2 of them were very strong among rank 6 martial artists, so they were not targeted by the enemy's generals. During the battle, they also killed many Dongfu army soldiers. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo did not expect Yi Xing to give them the silver star fruits, so they were very grateful. Yi Xing originally did not intend to give them the silver star fruits. The silver star fruits were not ordinary things, but the 2 of them killed many Dongfu army soldiers, which Yi Xing appreciated. Anyway, he still had a few silver star fruits on him, so he gave 2 to them. As for the remaining 3 silver star fruits, he gave 1 to Yi Yunlong, 1 to Yi Yundai, and 1 to Yi Yunlong to bring back to the Ye family in Tiansong City. He wanted to see which junior in the Ye family could cultivate to peak rank 6 martial Dao master first, and give it to that person. This way, the Ye family would have another martial Dao master. After giving the 3 silver star fruits to Yi Yunlong and Yi Yundai, Yi Xing headed to the library. He received an order from the academy that the library's 4th floor was open to him for an indefinite period of time. 3 chapters have been updated. 360 degrees rotation, requesting monthly votes. Chapter 147. On the 4th floor of the library, there were not many top-grade martial arts, only a dozen or so. Not many of these top-grade martial arts had explanations. When Yi Xing reached the 4th floor of the library, he naturally learned all of them. After the experience in Eastern Mountain City, Yi Xing had mastered all the martial arts in the super brain. His level of martial arts knowledge was better than that of a 9th-stage grandmaster. Even if there were no explanations, Yi Xing could learn these top-grade martial arts by himself. The first thing to change was naturally the cultivation technique. Yi Xing's Qingyuan art had been cultivated to the 6th level, and the internal strength in his body was very strong. However, he had seen the star essence of half-step martial saints and martial saints. He knew that his internal strength was nothing compared to a real powerhouse. Therefore, even if the super brain had improved the Qingyuan art into a top-grade cultivation technique, Yi Xing still cultivated the Origin Restoration Force, which was also a top-grade cultivation technique. The Origin Restoration Force combined combat and cultivation, and its internal strength was very strong. Moreover, through the improvement of the super brain, Yi Xing's Origin Restoration Force strengthened his internal strength more than the normal Origin Restoration Force. The normal Origin Restoration Force had a total of 6 levels, and one had to open 18 meridians to cultivate. After the super brain's improvement, the Origin Restoration Force had a total of 7 levels, and one had to open 24 meridians to cultivate. Although it was not at the level of a spirit-level martial art, and still belonged to the category of ordinary martial arts, it had almost reached the limit of ordinary martial arts. After coming out of the library, Yi Xing began to convert his internal strength. It was not until late at night that the conversion was completed. The Origin Restoration Force from the 6th level of the Qingyuan art was only at the 4th level. However, the Origin Restoration Force improved by the super brain had a total of 7 levels, and there was still a lot of room for improvement. The next day, Yi Xing had arrived at the Wangqing Slope before 7 o'clock in the morning. Zishanho arrived at the Wangqing Slope on time. Yi Xing greeted him. "Master." Zishanho nodded. "You have already gone to the 4th floor of the library. Which martial art did you choose?" Zishanho obviously did not know that Yi Xing had already memorized all the martial arts on the 4th floor. Yi Xing said, Origin Restoration Force. Zi Shanho said, "The biggest shortcoming of a star-tempering realm martial artist is their inner strength, and an archer's own strength is crucial. Returning essence force strengthens one's inner strength, which is the best cultivation method for you." However, the star-tempering realm is the foundation of martial arts, and building a good foundation is the most important. No matter how strong one's inner strength is, it can't be stronger than celestial essence, and the strength of celestial essence has nothing to do with the strength of one's inner strength. However, the foundation of the martial way can affect your entire life's martial way. If you don't refine the bones in your body, your foundation won't be stable, and you won't be able to condense a star spiral and become a martial saint. The top-grade body refining technique, Invincible Golden Body, not only strengthens your flesh and blood, it can also refine the bones in your body. Before you can condense a star spiral, you must at least cultivate the Invincible Golden Body to the Deshang level. These top-grade herbs are enough for you to cultivate. While speaking, Zi Shanho waved his hand, and more than 10 different kinds of top-grade herbs were stuffed into Yi Xing's hands. Every top-grade herb was very precious, and it was impossible to come across them unless one was in the depths of the Green Cloud Mountain range. Even a 9th-level martial master might not be able to find them. Purple Mountain County City only sold top-grade herbs at most, and it was impossible for top-grade herbs to appear. From this, it could be seen how precious the top-grade herbs Zi Shanho took out were. Of course, they were precious to a star-tempering realm martial artist, and were nothing to a martial saint. However, it was easy to cultivate the Invincible Golden Body to the Deshang level, but it was difficult to cultivate it to the Deshang level. Even if Zi Shanho gave him twice as many top-grade herbs, it still wouldn't be enough. Although peak-grade medicinal herbs were not considered precious items for martial saints, it was not easy to obtain large amounts of them. Zi Shanho had spent a lot of effort to obtain these peak-grade medicinal herbs. There were too many people who wanted to cultivate top-grade body refining techniques, and top-grade herbs were in short supply. As soon as they appeared on the market, they would be bought immediately. Yi Xing's top-grade body refining technique, the silver body technique, had already reached the Deshang level, and he was very clear about the benefits of having a strong physical body. Even if Zi Shanho didn't say anything, he would also cultivate the golden body technique, and think of a way to cultivate it to the Deshang level before advancing towards the martial saint realm. Many thanks, Master. Yi Xing put all the top-grade herbs into his storage ring. Zi Shanho sat on the ground and motioned for Yi Xing to sit as well. Today, Master will teach you the Eye of Azure Cloud. First, I will tell you the origin of the Eye of Azure Cloud. After Yi Xing sat down, Zi Shanho continued. Many years ago, the entire Azure Cloud region was a unified country called the Azure Cloud Country, which was controlled by the Azure Cloud sect. At that time, most of the top 10 sects in the Azure Cloud region didn't exist. Only the Tianluo sect and the Xianming sect had witnessed the existence of the Azure Cloud Country. At that time, the Tianluo sect and the Xianming sect didn't exist, and these two sects were only vassal sects in the territory of the Azure Cloud Country. The Eye of Azure Cloud is the secret of the Azure Cloud sect, and is a top-grade spiritual martial art. Yi Xing said. Spiritual martial art, is it a higher-level martial art than top-grade martial arts? Zi Shanho nodded. Yes. The martial arts that can be cultivated in the star-tempering realm are all ordinary martial arts, called mortal martial arts. Only those who have condensed star essence can cultivate spiritual martial arts. Spiritual martial arts are also divided into 4 grades: low, middle, high, and top grade. Martial saints and enlightened masters can cultivate them. Above spiritual martial arts, I heard that there are even more advanced profound martial arts. It is said that venerables and kings all cultivate profound martial arts. Yi Xing murmured. Mortal martial arts, spirit martial arts, and profound martial arts are divided into 4 grades: low, middle, high, and top grade. There are a total of 12 grades. Zi Shanho said. Not only martial arts, even medicine and weapons are divided like this. In the Qingyan area, there are only spirit-level martial arts and weapons. An upper-class spirit martial art is enough to be treated as a sect treasure by the major sections. An ultimate class spirit martial art is something that no sect has. Yixing looked surprised. Master, then wouldn't the Eye of Azure Cloud be easily peeped as a top-grade spiritual martial art? Yes. Zishanho nodded. Therefore it cannot be leaked. Yixing nodded with a serious face. He already knew the severity of the matter. Zishanho said. The Eye of Azure Cloud is divided into two parts, the Eye of Azure Cloud and the Eye of Cloud. In fact, I only obtained the upper part from the Azure Cloud Ancient Land. Only the cultivation method of the Eye of Azure Cloud is equivalent to a middle-grade spiritual martial art. However, even so, it cannot be leaked. If the enlightened masters of the other sects know that you have the Eye of Azure Cloud, how would they believe that you don't know the Eye of Cloud? I'm afraid they would have to peel your head open to see if they believe it. Yixing asked. Master, you have mentioned the Azure Cloud Ancient Land many times. What is that place? Zishanho said. The Azure Cloud Ancient Land is the origin of the Azure Cloud sect. It is a secret space. When the Azure Cloud sect was still around, it was the training ground of the Azure Cloud sect. Outsiders were not allowed to enter. Later on, the Azure Cloud sect was destroyed and the entire sect was destroyed. Only the Azure Cloud Ancient Land remained. Yixing said in surprise. I heard Master say that the Azure Cloud sect is in existence similar to the 9 great sects. How could it be destroyed? Zishanho said seriously. There is no sect in the world that can exist forever. My Falling Star sect has only been established for 700 years. In the entire Azure Cloud region, there are only 5 sects that have been around for more than 1,000 years. There are only 2 that have been around for more than 1,500 years. The Azure Cloud sect was destroyed 1,500 years ago. Enlightened masters only have a lifespan of 200 years. After 1,500 years, things have changed. Who knows how the Azure Cloud sect was destroyed, but regarding the destruction of the Azure Cloud sect, there are a few legends. One of them is that the young master of the Azure Cloud sect was wandering outside and killed the son of an honored master. That honored master came to the Azure Cloud region and destroyed the Azure Cloud sect. Another legend is that the Azure Cloud sect obtained a profound level treasure. I don't know if it was a black tortoise, a profound weapon, or a profound medicine. The news was heard by an honored master. The honored master destroyed the Azure Cloud sect and took away the treasure. There are many versions of these 2 legends, each with their own differences. For example, some say that the young master of the Azure Cloud sect was wandering outside and caused trouble. Some say that it was the son of an elder of the Azure Cloud sect. Some say that it was the elder of the Azure Cloud sect. In short, it was all caused by trouble outside, leading to the destruction of the Azure Cloud sect. As for the version of the Azure Cloud sect obtaining the treasure, there are also various, but in the end, it was all because of the treasure that the sect was destroyed. It's just that the treasures were different. However, in addition to these 2 versions of the legend, there is a third legend. It is very different from the first 2 legends. It can even be said that it is unrelated. Yixing's eyes lit up and said, There is a third legend? Zishanho nodded. Yes, the third legend is that the Azure Cloud sect did not kill people and cause trouble. Second, they did not suffer because of the treasure. Yixing was surprised when he heard this. First, it was not an enemy. Second, it was not the crime of possessing a treasure. Then what else could cause the destruction of the Azure Cloud sect? A sect controlled by a superior country. Zishanho continued. Moreover, the first 2 legends are related to the Venerable One. But the third legend has nothing to do with the Venerable One. It is said that 2 kings fought in the Blue Cloud mountain range, and as a result, the Blue Cloud sect was caught in the crossfire. The entire sect was destroyed in the battle between the 2 kings. Kings fought caught in the crossfire. Yixing was dumbfounded. This third legend was too big of a leap. Indeed, it had nothing to do with the first 2 legends. However, the third legend was too unbelievable. For the martial artists of the Azure Cloud region, the honored master was a legend. How could there be 2 kings here? Furthermore, the Azure Cloud sect, as a 1-star upper sect, was the ruler of the upper kingdom. Yet, because of a battle between 2 outsiders, They had been caught in the crossfire and their entire sect had been destroyed. This was also hard to believe. Zishanho noticed Yixing's surprised expression and chuckled. This third legend is the most absurd and unbelievable. Therefore, most people believe in the first two legends. However, it is precisely because the third legend is unbelievable and fits the criteria of a legend that storytellers prefer to tell the third legend. It has spread far and wide. Although people don't believe in it, they like to hear stories like this. Zishanho waved his hand and stopped smiling. These are all idle chatter. Next, we will get to the main topic. I will teach you the cultivation method of the azure eyes. Listen carefully. Last night, I was busy until 1 o'clock. I happily posted a single chapter. I thought that today would be a big explosion of happiness. However, when I turned on the computer, today's monthly ticket was too sad. It was like my whole person was punched in the face. There was no passion left and my whole person was muddle-headed. My eyes are full of tears. Can I still have a monthly ticket? Chapter 148. Time flew by. Every day, Yixing would come to Wangqing Slope to listen to Zishanho's teachings on the green eyes. His super brain was powerful, and he had the ability to see far into the distance. His goals were astonishing, so when it came to cultivating the green eyes, it was a natural process for him, and he improved at lightning speed. Days passed and soon 10 days had passed. On this day, after Zishanho finished teaching Yixing, he asked, Yixing, you've been cultivating the green eyes for 10 days, have you had any results? Yixing nodded. Zishanho was surprised. Eye techniques were not like other martial arts. They were extremely difficult to cultivate. In the past, he had also taught Wang Feng the Eye of Azure Clouds, but after 3 months of teaching, there was no effect. This caused Zishanho to decisively give up. Wang Feng was not cut out for learning eye techniques, much less archery. Zishanho wiped away all of Wang Feng's memories of the Eye of Azure Clouds. Now he had only taught Yixing for 10 days. Today's question was just a casual gesture, but unexpectedly Yixing nodded, indicating that there were results. Zishanho's eyes were filled with joy. How far can you see now? For example, how far can you see insects, flying ants, and other small animals? Yixing's eyesight allowed him to see things from 10 miles away. If he used his green eyes, he would be able to see even further. However, Yixing obviously couldn't include the superbrain's ability to see things from afar. Otherwise, Zishanho would probably be shocked by what he saw. Yixing did not use the ability to see far, but only the green eyes. Soon, his eyes were covered with a layer of green light, and it was as if the insects 3 miles away were right in front of him. Then Yixing used the ability to see far, and his eyesight increased by several times. It was not just 10 miles, but the furthest he could see insects was 15 miles. With the superbrain's long-range vision, not only did Yixing cultivate green eyes very quickly, but he also strengthened its effects. In his normal state, he could only see up to 3 miles away, but when he used long-range vision, he could still see up to 5 miles away. Even if it was 5 miles away, this had almost doubled the long-distance vision of the green eyes by 60 to 70%. The effect was heaven-defying. Yixing simply stated the distance of his vision under normal circumstances. I can see clearly up to 3 miles away, which is about 1,600 meters. For an ordinary person, being able to clearly see insects and flying ants dozens of meters away was already considered an excellent eyesight. However, martial artists, through cultivation, would improve all aspects of their bodies, and their eyesight would become better and better. An 8th-level Grandmaster's eyesight should be able to see insects and flying ants 500 to 600 meters away, which was 1,000 steps away. Yixing, on the other hand, could see 1,600 meters away, which was about 3 times the eyesight of an 8th-level Grandmaster. It was obvious that the green eyes had greatly improved his eyesight. Zishanho's expression became 10 times more joyful, and he was shocked. You are indeed a martial arts genius. In just 10 days, you have such a great effect. Yixing smiled. If he told Zishanho that he could see insects and flying ants 15 miles away, he wondered how shocked Zishanho would be. Of course, he could only think about it in his heart. He could not say it out loud. Zishanho said. Since your eyesight has already reached such a level, then next, you can cultivate it simultaneously with your archery. How far have you cultivated your origin returning energy, invincible avatar, and gale arrow technique? Yixing said. Origin returning force 5th level, invincible golden body nearing completion, and gale arrow technique reaching perfection. In these 10 days, although he had been learning the green cloud eyes from Zishanho at the Wangqing slope during the day, Yixing had not been idle during the rest of the time. He had improved in all aspects. After 10 days of cultivating the origin returning force 5th level, Yixing had improved again. In terms of inner strength quality, Yixing was comparable to a late 9th level martial grandmaster. As for the cultivation of the invincible golden body, Zishanho had given him more than 10 kinds of top quality herbs, so it was natural that the speed was fast. Now there were still a few top quality herbs that he had not used. In another 8 to 10 days, the invincible golden body would reach perfection. A superior body refining cultivation method at the Great Completion Realm would have a very powerful physical body. It was enough to condense a star vortex and break through to the martial sage realm. With just the physical strength, it would be enough to crush most 9th grade grandmasters. As for the gale arrow technique, Yixing had already reached perfection when he was in Dongshan City. The reason why he had not reached perfection was that he was still lacking a little bit of understanding. He needed to train himself through actual combat to break through that barrier. After that, he had enough experience through actual combat. Originally, he would have broken through to perfection very quickly. However, because he had been severely injured by Dong Xianing, he had fainted. Therefore, he only understood that little bit of understanding when he woke up, and the gale arrow technique had successfully broken through to perfection. Now Yixing's physical strength and inner strength were much stronger than before he had fainted. The gale arrow technique had also become more powerful. If he were to meet a martial saint like Luchuan Xiao again, Yixing was confident that he could fight him. The arrows he shot should be able to threaten a martial saint. However, in front of a martial saint, he was still far from enough. The origin returning force 5th level, and the gale arrow technique has reached perfection? Zishanho was surprised. He was not surprised at all by the cultivation of the invincible golden body. However, the origin returning force and the gale arrow technique had shocked him. There were very few 9th level martial grandmasters who had cultivated the origin returning force 5th level. Basically, only martial grandmasters who were at the later stage of the 9th level and above could cultivate to this level. However, Yixing had only cultivated the origin returning force 5th level for 10 days. As for the gale arrow technique, it was an upper-class martial technique. It was difficult to cultivate an upper-class martial technique to perfection. Moreover, archery had always been more difficult to cultivate than other martial arts. However, not only had Yixing cultivated the gale arrow technique to perfection, but he had also broken through to perfection. Although there was only one step between perfection and perfection, the difficulty was unusually high. He had blocked 99% of the martial artists. Among the 9th level martial grandmasters, there were many who had cultivated an upper-class martial technique to perfection. However, those who had cultivated an upper-class martial technique to perfection were less than 1 in 100. Zishanho had originally thought that he had already thought highly of Yixing. However, it seemed that he had still underestimated Yixing. Although Yixing's heavenly fate was ordinary and could even be said to be poor, in other aspects, he could already be described as monstrous. At the very least, Zishanho had never seen such a monstrous martial arts genius in his life. The only thing that could hinder such a person was that his cultivation could not increase. Once there was an opportunity, he could transform into a true dragon and become a supreme monstrous genius. As the saying went, a golden carp was not a fish in a pond. Once there was an opportunity, he would become a dragon. Zishanho was looking forward to it. He felt that the possibility of a miracle happening to Yixing was increasing. He let out a long sigh and said, "Yixing, you have really made me look at you in a new light. You are much better than I had imagined. From today onwards, I will teach you the stacking wave arrow technique." The stacking wave arrow technique is a supreme level archery technique. However, strictly speaking, The height of the stacking wave arrow technique far surpasses that of a supreme-level martial technique. When cultivated to the extreme, you can completely compete with the spiritual martial realm. The stacking wave arrow technique of the supreme-level archery technique has a total of 9 stacks. Once cultivated to the 9th layer, it is considered perfect. However, if one's inner strength is thick enough, it can reach beyond the 9th layer. As for how many layers one can stack, it depends on the thickness of one's inner strength and the degree of control. In other words, archery skills that surpass the 9th layer will surpass the limits of a supreme-level martial technique, and will be extremely powerful. Yi Xing listened with anticipation and said, "Master, if I am not a martial saint, but the stacking wave arrow technique reaches the 9th layer and above, can I kill a martial saint?" Zishanho nodded. In theory it is possible. 10 layers of stacks is enough to threaten a martial saint who has just entered the star vortex realm. When the stacks of stacks reach a certain level, killing a martial saint is not a problem. However, even if you cultivate the origin returning force to the 6th layer and your cultivation reaches the limit of the 9th layer, the 9th layer is already the limit. It is almost impossible to surpass the 9th layer. Hearing this, Yi Xing was full of confidence. The strengthening effect of his origin returning force on his inner strength was higher than the normal origin returning force. Furthermore, his origin returning force was at the 7th layer. The normal origin returning force could reach the 9th layer at the 6th layer. If he cultivated the improved origin returning force to the 6th layer, there should be hope for him to surpass the 9th layer. If he cultivated it to the 7th layer, wouldn't it be possible for him to kill a martial saint? The sun and the moon alternated day after day. Yi Xing cultivated intensely every day. His progress in all aspects was extremely fast. His green eyes could clearly see the distance of insects and flying ants. From 3 li to 5 li, then to 7 li. This was under normal conditions. If he used the super brain's vision, he could clearly see the distance of insects and flying ants to more than 20 li. This had already surpassed Zishanho's eyesight. Yi Xing cultivated the stacking wave arrow technique and reached the 3rd layer. Then he quickly reached the 4th layer, 5th layer, 6th layer. Half a month later, Yi Xing's stacking wave arrow technique had reached the 9th layer. His origin returning force had also broken through to the 6th layer. If he had more time, when he completely consolidated the 6th layer of origin returning force, and was about to break through to the 7th layer, he might be able to surpass the 9th layer and reach the 10th layer. If that was the case, Yi Xing's stacking wave arrow technique with the 10th layer would give him the qualifications to challenge a martial saint. Without a doubt, the invincible golden body had reached the great completion stage. Yi Xing's only obstacle was how to cultivate the invincible golden body to the perfection stage. Perhaps, he would need to go to the depths of the Green Cloud mountain range to have a chance. However, he did not have this opportunity recently. The day of the Falling Star sect's disciple recruitment was getting closer and closer. Yi Xing had to become a disciple of the Falling Star sect first. According to the sect's rules, only in the sect could one receive the inheritance of the spiritual martial force. Martial saints were not allowed to privately send help, even if they were master and disciple. Unless you plan to not enter the sect for the rest of your life and become a rogue martial artist, the sect would not accept a disciple who already had the inheritance of the spiritual martial force. Most of the spiritual martial force could only be learned after becoming a martial saint. However, the inheritance was an exception. The inheritance referred to the cultivation technique. The cultivation technique was not restricted by the realm. In theory, even a normal warrior could receive the inheritance of the black tortoise. However, this was only in theory. Being able to learn it did not mean that one could master it. The following is forced. Please read. I really want to explode. I really want to write more words. I really want to update more. But I am really tired. Not only am I tired from writing, but I am also tired mentally. Moreover, the mental exhaustion is even more serious than writing words. The Archer God is still 1,300 votes away from first place in the monthly votes. With 10 or 20 votes a day, I can't see any hope of catching up. And I need a hope in my heart. This is my motivation to explode. The motivation to work hard. I want to ask, will the explosion continue? My answer is yes, I will continue. There is still a lot of time left in this month. In the future, not only will there be an explosion of 3 chapters, there will also be 4 chapters, or even more. However, I really need a little support from my brothers. I need to see a hope. Brothers, half of the month has passed. If there is a second or third monthly votes, please vote for the Archer God. Just one vote. Okay? Chocolate, please. Chapter 149. Without step-by-step cultivation and consolidation, without rich martial arts knowledge, not to mention the black tortoise, even the lowest level of spirit martial inheritance, ordinary martial artists would not be able to learn it. Only by cultivating the highest level of cultivation methods to the highest level could one easily learn spirit-level cultivation methods. This was also the time when the sect passed down the spirit martial inheritance. Spirit martial arts that used celestial essence as the prerequisite required one to break through to the star vortex realm and completely convert their internal strength into celestial essence. Spirit martial arts that were not related to celestial essence, such as the blue cloud eyes, could be cultivated without reaching the star vortex realm. Spirit-level cultivation methods were to cultivate celestial essence and allow one's cultivation to break through to the star vortex realm. This was also something that could be cultivated without reaching the star vortex realm. On this day, Zishanho only tested the effect of Yi Xing's cultivation and said, "Today, I will tell you a story." Yi Xing's eyes flashed and suddenly became interested. "Is it another legend?" Zishanho shook his head and motioned for Yi Xing to sit down. "No, it is a true story." Yi Xing heard Zishanho's tone was a bit dignified. After a short "oh," he sat cross-legged on the grass and no longer spoke, just listening to the story. Zishanho sat down opposite Yi Xing. Once upon a time, there was an outer sect elder of the Falling Star sect. He was a peak martial saint. At the age of 30, he married a wife and started a family. He longed for the stars and the moon, and wanted to have a child. However, after more than 10 years of marriage, his wife never gave birth to a child. This made him very upset. At the age of 42, he ran away from home and wandered the world. Yi Xing thought that Zishanho was telling his own story, but after listening for a while, he felt that it was not the case. He did not ask and just listened quietly. In the past 7 years, this elder had traveled to several countries in the Qingyan region. He had been to the southern and northern parts of the Qingyan mountains. Along the way, he had encountered dangers and suffered injuries. However, these setbacks did not make him want to return home. He just wanted to wander the world until one day. There was a twist in the story, and Yi Xing's ears perked up. Until one day when he traveled to the Tianluo Kingdom, a big country in the north, he found an abandoned baby girl. His wandering heart finally felt like returning home. He adopted the baby girl and brought her back to the Luoxing Kingdom. When he returned home, he was ready to raise his daughter and live a peaceful life. Coincidentally, maybe it was because he was in a good mood when he returned home this time, but in just a few months, his wife was pregnant. Yi Xing blinked his eyes. And the story, elder of course. And at this point, Zishanho's face revealed a faint smile. Yi Xing also smiled. This was indeed something to be happy about. However, Yi Xing knew that this story was not over. Zishanho would not tell him a meaningless story, so he continued to listen quietly. The husband and wife raised their son and daughter. The children grew up day by day, and they also grew older day by day. Gradually, white hair appeared on their heads. However, they were always very happy because their 2 children were very capable. The son had an 8-star orange fate, and the daughter had a 9-star orange fate. From the beginning of their cultivation, they surpassed ordinary people and stood out among their peers. Since young, the 2 elders wanted to bring their son and daughter together. They hoped that they could live in harmony and have a happy relationship. In the future, they could become husband and wife. The 2 children did not disappoint the 2 elders. They were very close. When they were around 17 years old, they broke through the star vortex realm and became inner disciples of the falling star sect. This made the two elders very happy. Originally, everything should have developed beautifully, but Yi Xing's expression froze. There was another twist in the story. The smile on Zishanho's face had long disappeared. It was replaced by calmness as he continued to narrate. After becoming an inner disciple, the number of geniuses I came into contact with increased. Although the 8-star and 9-star orange fates were outstanding, they were not necessarily the highest. At that time, among the inner disciples, there was an enlightened Master Heaven's fate genius named Lu Tianyuan. Enlightened Master Heaven's fate is hard to come by in the falling star sect in dozens of years. Especially a 2-star yellow fate genius, he was the first in the falling star sect in 100 years. Moreover, Lu Tianyuan was the grandson of an inner sect elder. Naturally, he was fully nurtured by the sect. At this point, Yi Xing already had a premonition. As expected, Zishanho's following words confirmed his conjecture. After the old man's adopted daughter became an inner disciple, she fell in love with Lu Tianyuan. She herself was a 9-star orange fate genius, and in terms of talent, she was second only to Lu Tianyuan. Moreover, her appearance was second to none among the inner disciples. If Lu Tianyuan was a true dragon among the inner disciples, then she was a phoenix. No female disciple could surpass her limelight. How could Lu Tianyuan not be moved by the number one female disciple in terms of talent and appearance? The two quickly became entangled like glue. Yi Xing vaguely understood. The old man's son in the story was most likely Zishanho himself. As for the old man's adopted daughter, could she be the enemy that Zishanho spoke of? If she only fell in love with someone else, she shouldn't be considered an enemy. Yi Xing unconsciously glanced at Zishanho's legs. The following story should be related to his legs. Then the person who caused his legs to be crippled should be his enemy. Only he didn't know if it was Lu Tianyuan or the old man's adopted daughter who did it. Yi Xing felt a wave of disgust in his heart. At this point in the story, it had become the rhythm of two men fighting over a woman. Why was it so melodramatic and cliché? Zishanho's following words, however, made Yi Xing realize that he had guessed wrong, very wrong. Lu Tianyuan's aptitude was higher than the old man's son's, and his appearance was also better. He was a handsome and elegant gentleman. If the old man's adopted daughter only had a brotherly relationship with the old man's son, it was understandable that she fell in love with him. Although this made the old man and his son somewhat sad, they could only accept the reality. There are plenty of fish in the sea. The old man's son and adopted daughter grew up together. In fact, there were very few feelings between men and women. After the two separated, the old man's son was only sad for a short period of time, and then became more cheerful. As they grew older, the old man's adopted daughter and son became intermediate martial saints, and were promoted to core disciples. At this time the old man's son met the true other half of his life, the core disciple of the Spirit Moon sect, Yun Xilan. The two of them fell in love with each other, and it was from Yun Xilan that the old man's son truly felt the taste of love. Seeing that the story had developed to the Spirit Moon sect, Yi Xing's spirits were lifted. Wei Qingxian was now in the Spirit Moon sect, and was the personal disciple of Master Yanyu. When Zishanho talked about Yun Xilan, his eyes revealed a rare tenderness. However, the tenderness in his eyes soon disappeared, and was replaced by fierceness. When the Qingyan ancient land opened, the outstanding disciples of the top 10 sects in the Qingyan region could enter and gain experience there. The old man's son and Yun Xilan obtained a great opportunity in the Qingyan ancient land. Originally, they could both break through the Star Gang realm and become immortals, but Zishanho's tone suddenly became agitated, and his eyes flashed with hatred. He never thought that his sister would sneak attack them. Yun Xilan was killed on the spot, and his legs were cut off. He escaped with a small space-breaking spell, but the opportunity was taken away by the old man's adopted daughter. In the end, the old man's adopted daughter became an immortal in the Star Gang realm. An elder of them later became the wife of the sect leader. However, the old man's son became a cripple with both legs cut off. The two old men were already old, and they both died of anger because of this. At the end of the story, Zishanho was gnashing his teeth. and tears flashed in his eyes. However, many years had passed, and he was no longer the hot-blooded and impulsive young man. Although the hatred was buried deep in his heart, it was not so strong on the surface. In the end, no tears fell, and the tears in his eyes quickly disappeared. However, Yixing could feel the hatred in Zishanho's heart. At this point in the story, Yixing was naturally sure that the old man's son was his master, Zishanho. Even though Yixing was an outsider, he was still infuriated by such an outcome. Yixing said. She sneakily attacked her fellow disciples, tried to kill her brother, and angered her parents to death. She committed such crimes. Shouldn't the sect punish her? Zishanho's eyes twitched, and he said, after coming out of the Qingyan ancient land, she performed excellently in the 10 sects competition, and won honor for the Falling Star sect. As for me, my legs were crippled, and I didn't even have the qualifications to participate in the 10 sects competition. For a crippled person, the sect naturally valued a genius more. Moreover, she accused me of betraying the sect and giving the great opportunity to become an immortal in the immortal realm to an outsider. After she got the opportunity, she kept one for herself and gave the other to the sect, so that the sect could have one more immortal in the Star Gang realm. In addition, with Lu Tianyuan's support, all the elders in the sect stood on her side. If it weren't for Ancestor Lin, I would have been executed as a traitor more than 10 years ago. When Yixing heard this, he only felt a stifling feeling in his heart. Such a slut deserved to die. Yixing asked, who is Ancestor Lin? Zishanho said, Ancestor Lin Shiyuan, more than 100 years ago, the Falling Star Kingdom was occupied by the Dongfu Nation. It was Ancestor Lin who reorganized the Falling Star sect and recovered the territory of the Falling Star Kingdom. She is the only 3 immortal in the Falling Star sect. Then, Yixing hesitated for a moment. What's her name? Zishanho naturally knew who Yixing was asking about. With a serious expression, he said word by word, Hua, Tianshu. Zishanho shook his head. No. If you have the opportunity to get a spiritual medicine to regrow limbs in the future, get one for me. I want to kill this bitch with my own hands. Yixing nodded vigorously. Yes. Zishanho said. You don't have to come here tomorrow. It's the day of the Falling Star sect's disciple recruitment. Orange lives can directly become an outer disciple. Red lives need to go through a test. You have to get first place in the test, and the reward will let your cultivation break through to the 9th rank of the martial path. Brothers, thank you for your support. In just half a day, there were more than 100 votes, which gave me hope. Thank you. Today's explosion will continue. From today's votes, the brothers still have the goods in their hands. Please continue to support. Thank you. Chapter 150. The Falling Star sect's disciple recruitment was a grand event held once every 3 years. Martial Saint Heavenly Fate Realm geniuses did not need to take the test, and directly became outer disciples. As for ordinary Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators, even if they were 9-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators, they had to go through the test. Only the elites could become outer disciples of the Falling Star sect. To the secular world, 7-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators were geniuses, while 8-star and 9-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators were geniuses among geniuses. However, to the sects, 1-star or 9-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators were no different. They were all mortals with a difficult life. 7th layer Martial Master, 8th layer Martial Master, and 9th layer Martial Master were all titles for the secular world cultivators. In terms of martial Dao, they were only at the 7th, 8th and 9th layer of the Star Tempering Realm. They were all mortals who had not entered the sect yet. Only by gathering star rings and forming a star vortex and becoming a star marquis, or martial saint, could one be considered to have stepped into the martial Dao and become a star cultivator. If one did not become a martial saint, they were mortals, ants in the eyes of the sects. If mortals wanted to borrow the power of the sects to become a martial saint, they naturally had to go through a test. Because there were too many mortals, the resources of the sects were limited. They could only provide opportunities for a few elites. Early the next morning, Zishan rode the Purple Flame Eagle and Black Feather Eagle to the Purple Mountain Institute to take the top 10 from the previous assessment to the Falling Star Sect's disciple selection. The Black Feather Eagle was Watanabe Zhan's mount, the giant black eagle. Yi Xing learned its name from Zishan. Yi Xing remembered that he and Wei Qingxian were sent out from the depths of the Green Cloud Mountain Range by a red-clothed female martial saint. The giant black eagle they rode was also a black feather eagle. There were many black feather eagles, which were equivalent to martial saints. They were the most common flying mounts of martial saints. As for Zishan Purple Flame Eagle, although it was also a martial saint, it was much stronger than the black feather eagle. It was the king of the black feather eagles, equivalent to a high-rank martial saint. Wei Qingxian was not there, so naturally someone else came up. These people were not martial saint Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators. Not even 9-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators. They had to pass the test to have a chance of becoming a disciple of the Falling Star Sect. As for geniuses of the Martial Saint Heavenly Mandate like Wang Feng, there was no need for him to pass the test. He had already been taken in as a disciple of the Falling Star Sect several days in advance. The 10 students of the Purple Mountain Academy rode on the Purple Flame Eagle and the Black Feather Eagle respectively. Under the leadership of Zishan, they headed towards the Falling Star Sect. The Falling Star Sect was located in the Falling Star Mountains to the north of the Jinghua County. The Jinghua County was located in the center of the Luoxing Kingdom, while the Zishan County was located at the border. The distance between the two counties was about 5,000 to 6,000 miles. If one were to use a beast carriage, it would take at least 8 to 10 days to arrive. However, riding on the Purple Flame Eagle and Black Feather Eagle was extremely fast. It only took them half a day to arrive. The Falling Star Kingdom had a vast territory with a radius of more than 10,000 miles. There were a total of 105 counties, and each county had 10 places to participate in the Falling Star Sect's disciple selection. There were a total of 1,050 people. However, the Falling Star Sect only recruited a limited number of disciples each time. There were only 300 people, and around 70% of them would be eliminated. The elimination rate was very high. Most of the students from Xian County had already arrived in Zishan Prefecture. Most of the students from the other counties had already arrived. Outside Thana Huge Square, there were more than 100 black feather eagles and blue wind eagles standing there. On the back of each black feather eagle sat a marquee. Yi Xing and the others were not the last to arrive. There were still a few students from the other counties who had not arrived. They had to wait a little longer. Zishan had recently killed 3 martial saints of the East Fu country and destroyed 200,000 soldiers. He was in the limelight. As soon as he appeared, most of the marquises were very polite to him and took the initiative to congratulate him. However, not all of the marquises were happy with Zishan. Zishan, you've been very impressive recently. Not far away, a voice that was neither feminine nor masculine was heard. It was very ear-piercing among the congratulatory voices. Yi Xing heard the voice and looked over. The person who spoke was an old man in his 50s. He was also sitting on a purple flame eagle. He was a peak martial saint and his cultivation was not weaker than Zishan. Just as Yi Xing was guessing the other party's identity, Zishan said, Ziyang, no matter how impressive I am, I can't be more impressive than you. 3 beginner martial saints from the Ziyang Academy dare to be arrogant in my Purple Mountain Academy. My prestige is nothing. His words were also full of sarcasm. Yi Xing frowned. So this old man was the dean of the Ziyang College. Yi Xing looked at the cultivation of the students behind Marquis Ziyang. Out of the 10 of them, 5 of them were at the 9th level of the Star Tempering Realm while the other 5 were at the peak of the 8th level. As expected of one of the top 3 academies. In terms of cultivation, the 10 of them were much stronger than the 10 of them. Among the 10 students of the Purple Mountain Academy, only he and Ren Xiaowu were peak level 8 Star Tempering Realm while the rest were early or late level 8 Star Tempering Realm. In terms of cultivation, even the weakest of them was comparable to the strongest in the Purple Mountain Academy. Moreover, this was because Martial Saint Tianming was directly accepted as a disciple of the Falling Star Sect. Otherwise, the other party would definitely have more level 9 star tempering realm martial artists. When Yi Xing sized up the 10 students of the Ziyang Academy, he realized that their gazes were locked on him. They were very sharp and unfriendly, especially the 2 level 9 martial artists, who revealed murderous intent. This made Yi Xing squint his eyes. It seemed that these students of the Ziyang Academy would not let him off easily. He had to be careful in the sex test. Zishan Ho was more than 10 years older than Zishan Ho. When he was a disciple of the Zishan Ho had not yet entered the sect. In his eyes, Zishan Ho was just a baby. Even though Zishan Ho was nearing 40 years old, and was a marquis of a region, and had recently become famous for killing the martial saint of the Dongfu country, Zishan Ho was still prejudiced against Zishan Ho for killing the 3 blue wind eagles of the Ziyang Academy, and causing the 3 martial saints of the Ziyang Academy to return in a sorry state. Zishan Ho sneered. I'll let you be arrogant now. When the selection is over, let's see if you still have the face to be arrogant when no one from the Purple Mountain County gets selected. Zishan Ho retaliated. Even if my Purple Mountain County gets 1, it's still better than your Purple Sun County getting 10. No matter how many mediocre people there are, they're still mediocre. Zishan Ho snorted angrily and said to the students behind him, remember this. If a student from the Purple Mountain County gets selected this time, I'll hold you responsible. Yi Xing squinted his eyes and made up his mind. This time he must let Ziyang County eat a big duck egg. Zishan Ho, he's just a junior. Why are you bickering with him? It's just a moment of glory. He's just a cripple. How long can he be arrogant? At this moment, another ear-piercing voice was heard. It was also a peak martial saint, sitting on a purple flame eagle, who came to Zishan Ho's side. This person was obviously an outstanding marquis. He took out a wine jug and threw it to Zishan Ho, saying, come have a taste of my Guantian County's celestial fruit wine to relieve your anger. Jinghua County, Ziyang County, and Guantian County were the 3 largest counties in the Luoxing country. The middle schools of the counties were also the 3 strongest schools. The marquises of these 3 counties could only be conferred by peak martial saints. Just like the invincible marquis of the Dongfu country, they were not conferred by ordinary people. These 3 marquises had always been superior, and did not put the other marquises in their eyes. Zishan Ho had been in the limelight recently, and had completely overshadowed all the other marquises. Guantian was very dissatisfied with this. He often told people that Zishan Ho was able to kill the invincible marquis of the Dongfu country, only with the help of the bow and arrow. This was because the bow in Zishan Ho's hand was an upper-grade spiritual weapon. Normally, only perfected persons would have upper-grade spiritual weapons. Without the upper-grade spiritual bow, Zishan Ho would not be a match for the invincible marquis of the Dongfu country. There were very few people who could kill the invincible marquis in the Luoxing country, but Guantian was one of them. Guantian's words seemed to be high and mighty, and he even reprimanded Zishan Ho as a villain. However, many people could see who was the villain. However, no one dared to say it out loud. As one of the 3 strongest marquises in the Luoxing country, ordinary marquises could not be compared to him. After Marquis Guantian mocked Zishan Ho, he didn't stop. He continued to speak to the students of Guantian Academy behind him. All of you remember this. When we enter the 100 Illusions Matrix, don't let the students of trash schools fish in troubled waters. The Falling Star sect needs elites, and trash should be eliminated. Understand? Yes, Marquis. We will not let any trash students pass. The students of Guantian Academy said in unison. Guantian County. Yi Xing's gaze swept over the students behind Guantian. You guys also have to eat big duck eggs. Guantian and Ziyang Marquis quickly began to talk and laugh. Their words always had a high and mighty attitude as they constantly belittled other marquises. Naturally, there was no lack of open and veiled ridicule towards Zishan Ho. The other party did not openly attack Zishan Ho, and Zishan Ho was too lazy to pay attention to them. He only glanced at Yi Xing. Yi Xing nodded. Of course, he understood Zishan Ho's gaze. Even without Zishan Ho's instructions, he had already made his decision. He would let Ziyang County and Guantian County eat big duck eggs. With the passage of time, The people from the other remote counties had arrived. The 1,050 juniors had all gathered in the square. Each of them had received a card from the sect. The outer sect elder Huiyang Xian presided over the selection of disciples. He stood on the high platform at the back of the square and said loudly, "Juniors, the cards you just received are the 100 Illusions formation cards. Only those with the formation cards can enter the 100 Illusions formation. If anyone loses the card in the 100 Illusions formation, they will be immediately sent out of the 100 Illusions formation, which means they will be eliminated." Everyone kept the formation cards close to their bodies. "There are a total of 1,050 of you, but our sect will only accept 300 disciples. 750 of you will be eliminated. When the number of people eliminated from the 100 Illusions formation reaches 750, the first round of selection will end. The remaining 300 people in the 100 Illusions formation will become our sect's new disciples. Furthermore, the 10 people who obtain the most formation tokens will become the top 10 of this selection and receive generous rewards. The second round of selection will be the competition between the top 10. The top 5, top 3, and first place will be determined. Different rankings will have different rewards. The first place will have the most generous reward." Everyone's eyes lit up. Most people wanted to rush into the top 10. A small number of experts wanted to fight for first place, requesting monthly votes. There will be more updates tonight. Chapter 151. If one only wanted to be accepted as a disciple of then the best way after entering the 100 Illusions formation was to find a place to hide. As long as he did not lose his formation card, he could continue to stay in the 100 Illusion array until the number of people eliminated reached 750. Then he would naturally become one of the 300 disciples accepted by the Falling Star sect. However, if one wanted to fight for the top 10, or even the top 5, top 3, or first place, then it was completely impossible to hide after entering the 100 Illusions formation. The only way was to take the initiative to attack and seize the formation plates of others. In short, if one wanted to be accepted as a disciple, all one had to do was to protect one's array card. If one wanted to enter the top 10, one had to snatch enough array cards. One had to focus on defense, while the other had to focus on attacking. Although the Purple Mountain Academy didn't have any students in the 9th level of the Star Tempering Realm, there were still many in the other academies. In fact, the Purple Mountain County didn't lack 9-star Destiny Realm juniors. Wang Feng wasn't the only one in the Martial Saint Destiny Realm. However, because Zishan Academy's disciples who entered the Falling Star sect always suffered setbacks and were assigned to the most unpromising units to do the heaviest work, after 2 rounds of the Falling Star sect's disciple selection, some of the big clans in Zishan County, if they had a 9-star fate or even a Martial Saint fate descendant, would be sent to a relative's family in another county at a very young age to avoid being branded as a member of Zishan County. It was precisely because of the loss of talent that the Purple Mountain Academy's recent 2 batches of students did not have high aptitudes. Compared to other academies, they were a grade lower. The reason why Wang Feng stayed in the Zishan County was because the Wang family did not know the relationship between Zishan Ho and the Starfall sect. They wanted to curry favor with Wang Ho, thinking that by not entering the Zishan Academy and becoming Zishan Ho's disciple, they would be able to break the curse of the Zishan Academy's students entering the Starfall sect. Thus, when the Wang clan found out that Wang Feng's Heaven's Mandate might surpass 9 stars, they recommended him to Zishan Ho and requested him to take him in as a disciple. Zishan Ho tested that Wang Feng's Heaven's Mandate was a 5-star orange fate, and found that Wang Feng's talent was indeed extraordinary. He naturally accepted Wang Feng as his personal disciple, and did his best to nurture Wang Feng. He even taught Wang Feng the Azure Cloud Eyes. However, Wang Feng truly wasn't suited to learn eye techniques, so Zishan Ho gave up. Afterwards, Zishan Ho took in Wang Feng as his adopted son. It was Wang Feng who had requested this from Zishan Ho under the wishes of his family elders. Zishan Ho had no children, and at that time, he only had Wang Feng as his personal disciple. Wang Feng was willing to acknowledge him as his father. This naturally made Zishan Ho very happy, and so he took Wang Feng in as his adopted son. As a result, Wang Feng, a genius with the martial saint's mandate, chose to stay in the Zishan County. Therefore, although the Zishan Academy didn't have any 9-star Destiny students or 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students, it couldn't be compared to the other academies. Like the Zishan Academy, there weren't many academies that didn't have any 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students. Most of them had at least 1, 2, or even 3. As for the top 3 academies, each of them had more than 5. All in all, among the 1,050 students, there were more than 200 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students. Most of the others were at the peak of the 8th level or late stage of the 8th level. Those below late stage of the 8th level were extremely rare. Among the 200 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students, there were more than 30 late-stage 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students. Even late-stage 9th-level Star Tempering Realm martial artists didn't have a high chance of getting into the top 10. This showed how difficult it was. Basically, only late-stage 9th-level Star Tempering Realm martial artists had the confidence to get into the top 10. Those below late-stage 9th-level Star Tempering Realm martial artists were few and far between. Among the 8th-level Star Tempering Realm martial artists, Yixing was the only one who had the confidence. The 100 illusion formation has a radius of 100 miles. Intentional killing is strictly prohibited in the formation. If you lose, hand over the formation token, and you'll be teleported out immediately. Go in. Whoever wants to get into the top 10, try your best to grab as many formation tokens as possible. The more formation tokens you have, the higher your chance of getting into the top 10. Gongyang Xian didn't beat around the bush. He quickly finished his speech and pointed behind him. There was a swirling ripple behind him. It was obviously the entrance to the 100 illusion formation. Following Gongyang Xian's gesture, all the students rushed to the high platform. They passed through the swirling ripple and disappeared into the 100 illusion formation. The 100 illusion formation had a radius of 100 miles. There were various terrains such as mountains, rivers, plains, and so on. The students who entered the formation were assigned to different areas. Yixing passed through the ripple vortex and appeared in the 100 illusion formation in an instant. He was at the edge of the plains. On his right was a mountainous area. On his left, there were 3 other students a few hundred meters away in different directions. One of the students immediately ran towards the mountainous area. If one wanted to hide, the mountainous area was clearly a good place. On the plains, others would be able to discover one from a distance. As for the other 2 students, they seemed to be from the same school. They quickly gathered together and knelt before Yixing. These 2 people were at the peak of the 8th level Star Tempering Realm. Yixing was also at the peak of the 8th level Star Tempering Realm, but he was alone. The 2 of them stopped 10 meters away from Yixing. One of them said, "Hand over the formation token, and you can safely leave the 100 illusion formation." At the peak of the 8th level Star Tempering Realm, unless one was a monstrous genius like Yixing, there was no hope of getting into the top 10. Therefore, as long as a student at the peak of the 8th level Star Tempering Realm held on to their formation token and didn't get eliminated, they would be able to last until the end and win. Yixing really didn't know what these 2 people were thinking. They snatched his formation token, but they couldn't get into the top 10. There must be something wrong with their heads. Although he thought that there was something wrong with their heads, Yixing was still very happy about their arrival. He needed a large number of formation tokens to have any hope of getting into the top 10. In his eyes, these 2 people were obviously here to give him their formation tokens. Yixing touched his chin and said in the same tone, "Hand over the formation token, and you can safely leave the 100 illusion formation. You're courting death. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." The 2 of them shouted angrily at the same time. Without saying anything else, they instantly attacked. One of them jumped up and pounced on Yixing's chest. Both of his palms clapped together. The inner strength in his palms instantly penetrated through his body and turned into 2 palm prints, slapping towards Yixing. One of them shoveled on the ground and attacked Yixing's lower body. His right leg flashed with inner strength and dug out a 10-meter-long trench on the ground. These 2 people obviously worked together often. one on top and one on bottom, attacking at the same time. Martial artists of the same realm basically couldn't survive a single move from them. However, Yi Xing wasn't an ordinary peak level 8 martial artist. He moved his feet and used the Big Dipper step. The shoveling leg attacking Yi Xing's lower body suddenly missed. Yi Xing's foot stepped down, accurately stepping on the ankle of the shoveling leg. As for the two palm prints, Yi Xing didn't even use his inner strength. He just used his pure physical strength to casually slap them into pieces. Then, in just an instant, Yi Xing's two consecutive palms collided with the opponent's two palms. However, the sound was heard almost at the same time. Two screams sounded at the same time. The ankle that was stepped on was instantly dislocated. Moreover, Yi Xing was stepping on it, making it impossible for it to move. As for the student that collided with Yi Xing's two palms, he was instantly sent flying. His internal organs seemed to be in turmoil. His face was swollen red, and he felt extremely uncomfortable. He was about to vomit blood. Yi Xing stepped on the student under his foot, and glanced at the student that was thrown more than 10 meters away. He said, "Are you going to take the initiative to hand over your array cards now? Or are you going to wait until I beat you until you can't take it anymore?" Both of their eyes were filled with fear. Usually when the two of them teamed up, they could deal with martial artists of the same realm in one move. However, today, both of them were defeated by Yi Xing, a martial artist of the same realm, in one move. This was an outcome that they never expected. Even some level 9 star tempering realm martial artists might not be able to achieve such a powerful strength. How would the two of them dare to fight with Yi Xing? They quickly handed over their array cards. With a flash of light, the two of them were sent out of the 100 illusion formation. Yi Xing now had 3 array cards. In the 100 illusion formation, there were a total of 1,050 students who participated in the selection. Among them, 750 were eliminated. For every person that was eliminated, the remaining students in the 100 illusion formation would have one more array card. In other words, compared to the 300 students who were not eliminated, there would be 750 more array cards. If one wanted to enter the top 10, one would have to obtain at least 1/10 of the extra 750 array cards, which was 75 array cards. Together with the one card that one already had, it would be 76 array cards. As long as one could obtain 76 array cards, it would mean that one would be able to enter the top 10. Yi Xing put away the 2 formation cards and looked into the distance. His vision allowed him to see 10 miles away. This was just the ability of his super brain. There were too many people in the 100 illusions formation, so Yi Xing did not plan to use his green eyes. Other than those who were hiding in his field of vision, Yi Xing knew every student's position as long as they were within his field of vision. Yi Xing immediately chose the direction with the most people. The reward for the first place was enough for him to break through to the 9th stage of the star tempering realm. He was determined to get it. To get the first place, one had to enter the top 10. Therefore, Yi Xing had to obtain more array cards. He had to obtain at least 76 array cards. Although 75, 73, or even 70 array cards were enough for him to enter the top 10, Yi Xing had to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Therefore, they could only eliminate some people and snatch the array formation tokens from their hands. The direction Yi Xing chose wasn't based on the cultivation level of the other party, but on the number of people. Only by having a large number of people would he be able to obtain enough array formation cards. In Yi Xing's opinion, it didn't make much of a difference whether the other party was in the 8th or 9th stage of the star tempering realm. Yi Xing had only walked a few hundred meters when he was surrounded again. This time, it was a 9th stage beginner and 3 8th stage peak cultivators. Although Yi Xing did not see any students from the Purple Mountain Academy nearby, not all students were like him, and did not know anyone nearby. The 4 of them were from the same academy. Fortunately, they were not too far away from each other after entering the 100 illusion formation. They quickly gathered together. There was strength in numbers. The 4 of them were obviously stronger when they joined forces to snatch other people's array cards. Chapter 152. Yi Xing crossed his arms in front of his chest, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, carrying a thought-provoking smile. Before the other party could speak, Yi Xing had already looked at the four of them with interest and said, "The four of you, are you here to give me the array token?" The four of them were stunned. Of the four of them, one was at the early stage of the 9th level, 3 were at the peak of the 8th level, and Yi Xing was only one person at the peak of the 8th level. Yet he dared to say such a thing? Was there something wrong with his head? This thought flashed through the four of their minds. The early stage 9th level student said, "Idiot, hand over the array token and get out of the 100 illusions array, or I'll teach you a lesson." Yi Xing stretched his right arm forward, his index finger pointing at the early stage 9th level student, and hooking it a few times. "Come, let me see how you'll teach me a lesson." Being looked down upon, the early stage 9th level student was furious, his breathing quickened, and his face turned ashen. This brat is too arrogant. Senior brother Fanjian, break his dog legs. Senior brother Fanjian, smash his mouth. The 3 peak 8th level students were also furious, and shouted angrily at the same time. Fanjian was very angry, his eyes revealed a dangerous light, and walked towards Yi Xing. "Brat, you've angered me. Are you going to support your stinky mouth, or do you want me to support your stinky mouth? One is enough, I'll do it, at least 10. Yi Xing's expression was normal. "Are you saying that only you can snatch my array token, but I can't snatch yours? I only said what you wanted to say to me in advance. Do you have to be so angry?" Fanjian continued to move forward, getting closer and closer to Yi Xing, his aura threatening. "Cut the crap, you don't have much time to choose." Yi Xing cracked a smile. What seemed like an innocent smile was actually a dangerous one. "Brother Fanjian, right? Don't be so ruthless with your words. I originally only wanted your formation tablets. If you continue to act like this, we won't be able to play happily anymore. Perhaps what you say will be the final consequence that you will have to bear." "Noisy." Fanjian snorted coldly, and his palm suddenly emitted a bright light. That was the condensation of a dense inner strength, and its power was terrifying. Although it was not released, this palm was enough to split gold and stone. Fanjian snorted coldly and rushed towards Yi Xing. His palm slapped towards Yi Xing's face. Pa. Before it even touched Yi Xing's face, an explosive sound could be heard as the palm moved. It was as if the air had been blown apart. It was clear how powerful the palm was. Even an 8-dan pinnacle Zongsha realm cultivator would not be able to withstand the might of this palm strike. They would suffer severe injuries, possibly even fatal injuries. Fanjian's ruthless attack caused Yi Xing's eyes to flicker coldly. In the face of Fanjian's palm strike, Yi Xing did not dodge. Instead, he stretched out his left hand and grabbed the other party's palm. Yi Xing's palm was covered in a layer of golden light. There was no fluctuation of inner strength. Supreme-grade body refining technique. Invincible golden body. The greater mastery of the invincible golden body was enough to defeat most of the 9-dan star tempering realm cultivators. Not to mention the early stage, he could even defeat the mid-stage. When the two palms collided, an explosive sound could be heard. The inner strength in Fanjian's palm was dispersed and dimmed. However, the golden luster on Yi Xing's palm was still there. His strength was like a vice, and he caught Fanjian's palm in an instant. At the same time, his other hand suddenly clenched into a palm and slapped towards Fanjian's face. It was also covered in a golden luster. Fanjian's hand was caught by Yi Xing. Even if he used all his strength, he could not pull his hand out. There was no way for him to dodge this palm strike. He could not even block it. Pa. The golden luster of the palm slapped Fanjian's face. Fanjian's face turned 90 degrees, and a bloody palm print appeared on his face. Broken teeth and blood spurted out. Fanjian's eyes rolled back. He was almost knocked out by Yi Xing's slap. In the next instant, Yi Xing's hand shot out like lightning and grabbed the array formation token from the other party's body. Without the array card, Fanjian was sent out of the 100 illusion formation in a flash of light. He was eliminated. The other 3 students who were at the pinnacle of the 8-dan star tempering realm were stunned. They did not expect Fanjian, who was at the early stage of the 9-dan star tempering realm, to be as weak as a 3-year-old. Yixing put away Fan Jian's array card and looked at the other three students. What about the rest of you? Run! The three of them shouted at the same time. They turned around and ran, using their lightness skill to the maximum. Upper grade lightness skill. Traceless flying snow. Yixing moved and chased after them. His speed was more than twice as fast as the three of them. There were more than 2,000 martial arts in the Purple Mountain Academy library. Yixing had mastered them all. Even his upper-grade martial arts had reached the transformative realm. The traceless flying snow of the transformative realm was faster than the flying swan technique of the transformative realm. How fast was that? It was obvious that none of the three martial artists at the pinnacle of the 8-Dan star tempering realm could escape. They did not even run far before they were caught by Yixing. The three of them panicked. They thought that Yixing would give them a slap each like Fan Jian. They hurriedly threw out their array cards and were sent out of the 100 illusion formation with bitter faces. Yixing kept the 3 array cards. He now had 7 cards in his hand. He was still far from the 76 array cards. He had to snatch more. Out of the 1,050 students who entered the 100 illusion formation, 750 of them would definitely be eliminated. Even if Yixing did not snatch the cards, there would still be 750 people who would be eliminated. It was just that the array cards would be snatched by others, and the top 10 would be taken by others. Since that was the case, Yixing would definitely snatch the cards. Since they were going to be eliminated, it did not matter who got the cards. Moreover, if he got the cards, he would be able to get more array cards. Fan Jian and the other 3 had their array cards snatched away by Yixing. This was seen by many students in the distance. Now these students regarded Yixing as a malefic star. They ran far away or hid. However, to Yixing, whose eyesight was far better than others, it was not easy to escape Yixing's pursuit. He used traceless flying snow and flew towards the direction where there were more people. Outside the 100 illusion formation, there were students being eliminated one after another. The lower the cultivation, the earlier they were eliminated. This was because once they entered the 100 illusion formation, there would be students with higher cultivation everywhere. It was normal for their array cards to be snatched away. Many students with lower cultivation were from Zishan Academy. Therefore, not long after the first round of selection began, there were already a few students from Zishan Academy who were eliminated. Marquis Ziyang, look, a trash academy is a trash academy. It hasn't been long since the selection began, and Zishan Academy has already eliminated 6 people. Among the eliminated students, 1/10 of them are from Zishan Academy, haha. Marquis Guantian laughed beside Marquis Ziyang. Marquis Ziyang was also full of smiles. There were almost 100 students eliminated, but Zishan Academy and Guantian Academy had not eliminated a single one. Both of them were very superior. Marquis Ziyang chuckled. This is just the beginning. It won't be long before Zishan Academy is completely eliminated. Not a single one will be left, hee. Both of their voices were very loud. The marquises nearby could hear them clearly. They could not help but look at Marquis Zishan's reaction. Marquis Zishan sat on the back of the purple flame eagle. The corner of his mouth was slightly raised, carrying a thought-provoking smile. No one could tell what he was thinking. About an hour had passed in the 100 illusions formation, and the number of formation cards in Yixing's hand had already reached 27. Basically, those who were targeted by him could not escape his tracking. Therefore, he should have obtained more formation cards and was at the front. If he maintained this speed, it would not be a problem for him to be in the top 10. Yixing's eyes constantly scanned the surroundings, looking for traces of other students. Suddenly, Yixing's expression changed. On a mountain peak a few miles away from him, 5 students suddenly walked out from the back of the mountain. There were 3 boys and 2 girls. A girl in the middle of the 9th level, a boy in the early 9th level, and 3 at the peak of the 8th level. With such a team configuration, Yixing could definitely defeat them all. What surprised him was not the strength of these 5 people, but the fact that there was an acquaintance among them. Chu Jingnan, whom he met when he obtained the Silver Star Fruit, was now at the peak of the 8th level. Since they were acquaintances, Yixing naturally could not snatch their formation cards. Moreover, With their team's strength, they could definitely last until the end, rank in the top 300, and become disciples of the Falling Star sect. When Yi Xing saw Chu Jingnan and the other four, they also saw him. However, Chu Jingnan and the other four did not have Yi Xing's eyesight. They only saw Yi Xing from afar, but did not see his appearance clearly. Seeing a lone student, Chu Jingnan and the other four naturally rushed over. Although Yi Xing did not intend to snatch their formation cards, he did not avoid them either. Brother Yi Xing. When Chu Jingnan saw Yi Xing's appearance clearly, his expression immediately turned to joy. Obviously, he did not expect to see an acquaintance. Yi Xing also waved at Chu Jingnan. Brother Chu, how have you been? Chu Jingnan soon arrived in front of Yi Xing. Chu Jingnan introduced. Cousin senior brother Yuanbai, this is brother Yi Xing, whom I told you about. He has not become a martial Dao master yet, but he killed Jinxiang Temple, who was at the peak of the 8th level of the Ziyang College. The other four people all had shocked expressions on their faces. The middle stage 9th heaven female in the lead was obviously the leader of the 5 people. She walked out and sized Yi Xing up. Yi Xing remembered that Chu Jingnan had said that his cousin, Chu Jingyue, could defeat someone at the peak of the 7th level, when she was at the early stage of the 7th level. The middle stage 9th level girl in front of him should be Chu Jingyue. If she was a genius who could fight above her level, then her strength was a little scary. One could not judge her from her appearance. Chu Jingyue sized up Yi Xing for a while and said, Your archery skills are very good. I wonder how your strength is. Yi Xing also looked at Chu Jingyue carefully. She was wearing a tight black leather suit. She had a slender waist, full buttocks, and big breasts. Her devilish figure was perfectly highlighted, and she looked like an elegant cheetah. Coupled with her angelic face, Chu Jingyue was simply a stunner. Today's monthly votes are miserable. Brothers who have monthly votes, please support one. Chapter 153. Chu Jingyue frowned when she saw that Yi Xing didn't reply, but his eyes were wandering around her devilish body. Yi Xing immediately sensed her reaction. He retracted his gaze and said, Not bad. Chu Jingyue said unhappily, Jingnan said that you have the strength to fight above your level. I want to see if he's bragging. Yuanbai, you go and test him. If you can't withstand 3 moves from Yuanbai, don't blame me for snatching your formation card. The man in the early 9th rank walked up. Yuanbai rubbed his fists and turned to look at Chu Jingnan at the same time. Chu Jingnan winked at Yi Xing. Yi Xing, can you do it? Although Yi Xing could fight above his level when he was in the 6th rank of the martial path, martial artists were limited in many ways. It didn't mean that one could fight above his level in the early stages, and always be able to do so in the later stages. Yi Xing nodded. No problem. Yuanbai nodded at Yi Xing with a smile and said, I'll make my move. As he spoke, Yuanbai took a step forward and waved his right arm. He punched at Yi Xing like a flash of lightning. In an instant, Yuanbai's entire arm was suffused with a red luster. The fist force rushed out and turned into a fire pattern that rushed forward in an instant. The void was burning and crackling, and the temperature suddenly rose. This internal force of the fire attribute was much stronger than ordinary internal force. Yuanbai's strength was at the peak of the early 9th rank. In the face of his opponent's fire pattern fist force, Yi Xing moved his feet, and his figure disappeared in an instant. Upper-level body movement technique. 4 directional steps. The 4 directional steps of the transformative stage allowed Yi Xing's speed to be unparalleled in a certain space. The 7-star steps of the transformative stage might not be able to dodge the attack of the fire pattern fist force, but the 4 directional steps of the transformative stage could easily dodge it. Seeing that Yi Xing had actually dodged his punch, Yuanbai was surprised. Then, like a flash of lightning, he used his body movement technique and rushed toward Yi Xing. Fire pattern consecutive punch. In the blink of an eye, Yuanbai's fists moved at the same time, and in the blink of an eye, he threw out a dozen punches. However, Yi Xing's 4 directional steps was indeed extremely fast. His figure flashed, and the dozens of fist marks did not even touch the corner of his clothes. Fan ripple. Yuanbai was a little annoyed that he couldn't even touch Yi Xing after 2 consecutive moves. He let out a loud shout and threw out 2 punches. A powerful fire attribute inner strength surged out in an instant, forming a fan-shaped area that rushed forward. At this moment, Yi Xing was about to land on the ground. Once he landed, he would definitely be hit by the fire-patterned fist force. Traceless snowflakes. Yi Xing's movement technique changed into Qinggong. Both of his legs tapped on the air, and before he even touched the ground, his body was already much higher. The fiery fist energy rushed past his feet. Yi Xing did a backflip and landed lightly on the ground. He said, "Thank you for letting me win." After 3 moves, Yi Xing did not confront Yuanbai head-on. With his Qinggong body movement technique, he easily dodged all of the attacks. This made Yuanbai a little stunned. With his cultivation level of level 9 Star Tempering Realm, he could not even touch the corner of Yi Xing's clothes after 3 consecutive moves. Regardless of Yi Xing's strength, his Qinggong body movement technique shocked Yuanbai. Obviously, Yi Xing was much stronger than him. Brother Yi is indeed extraordinary. Yuanbai cupped his hands at Yi Xing. Obviously, he acknowledged the latter's strength and retreated. Chu Jingnan's face was full of smiles. "I told you Yi Xing is very strong. Cousin, he was even stronger than you when you were at a higher level." Yi Xing could tell that Chu Jingyue was not as happy as Chu Jingnan. Instead, she was a little displeased. After all, Yi Xing was an earthling. Although he had been in the Star Continent for almost a year, there were still some small differences between him and the locals. Her devilish figure was curvaceous, and it was perfectly outlined by the tight leather jacket. Yi Xing naturally took a few more glances at her. This was very normal on Earth. However, in the Star Continent, it was a little frivolous. Chu Jingyue labeled him as a pervert in her heart. Yi Xing could feel Chu Jingyue's displeasure. He said, "I won't disturb you anymore. Goodbye." Wait. Yi Xing was about to leave, but Chu Jingyue stopped him. "Just now, you were dodging with your body movement technique, and did not fight with Yuanbai. Who knows if your strength is enough to fight someone at a higher level? Let me test you. Just take 1 hit from me." Chu Jingyue thought to herself. "This kid is so young, but his eyes have already sized me up several times without any scruples. He must be a little pervert. Even if he is Jingnan's friend, I have to punish him." As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Jingyue's figure disappeared in a flash. In an instant, she appeared in front of Yi Xing and slapped him with her palm. Boom! Suddenly, the sound of thunder rang out. It was not thunder in the sky, but the muffled sound of thunder in Chu Jingyue's palm. She had performed an extremely powerful martial art, Thunder Palm. Since she intended to punish Yi Xing, Chu Jingyue naturally did not show too much mercy. Even an early-stage 9th-tier martial artist would not be able to withstand this palm. Chu Jingyue's attack was much faster than Yuanbai's. Even the 4-sided steps of the transformative stage could not avoid it. Yi Xing's body retreated backward. His palm glowed with a golden luster. In an instant, his palm collided with Chu Jingyue's. His body shot backward like an arrow leaving the bow. Chu Jingnan and the others were shocked. They thought that Yi Xing had been sent flying by Chu Jingyue's palm. How severe was his injury if he shot backward at such a fast speed? The next moment, Yi Xing's strange cry came from afar. "Ouch! Beauty! Your palm strength is as hot as your figure." While speaking, Yi Xing's body flashed past. In a few ups and downs, he had already run hundreds of meters away. He turned around a mountain and disappeared. Only then did everyone realize that Yi Xing was not injured at all. He had just retreated with the help of Chu Jingyue's palm strength. Chu Jingyue stood in place, her face cold. This little pervert dared to tease her. He was really reckless. However, Yi Xing's speed was too fast. She admitted that she could not catch up with him. She could only think bitterly, "The next time I see him, I must teach him a lesson." Behind her, Chu Jingnan looked at his cousin being humiliated. He immediately suppressed a smile from the bottom of his heart. His expression was very strange. His cousin had an angelic face and a devilish figure. She could be said to be a stunner that could move thousands of men. However, she had a violent temper. She was focused on martial arts and had a firm will. She had no romantic feelings at all. She was just a tomboy. After knowing her for a long time, he realized how terrifying she was. Whether it was the boys who wanted to hit on her, or the boys who were interested in her, they were all beaten up miserably by her. Yi Xing actually dared to flirt with this tigress. He was simply asking for trouble. Chu Jingnan could imagine that if his cousin met Yi Xing again, he would probably be taught a lesson. Afraid that Chu Jinghua would catch up with him, Yi Xing used traceless flying snow and ran all the way to distance himself from the other party. After running for more than 10 miles, Yi Xing saw that the other party did not catch up with him. Then he stopped at a high mountain. Standing at the top of the mountain, Yi Xing looked into the distance and observed the surroundings. Suddenly, Yi Xing's face lit up with joy. A few miles away, Yi Xing met a team of 8 students from Crown Sky Academy. Among them, 3 were at LV9 Star Tempering Realm. 2 were at the middle stage of LV9, 1 was at the early stage of LV9, and 5 were at the peak of LV8. Yi Xing grinned. In his eyes, the 8 of them turned into formation cards one after another. The 8 of them had at least 8 formation cards on them, but Yi Xing was sure that they had more than 8 formation cards. With the 8 of them together, they were a powerful force. They must have snatched many formation cards in their hands. Yi Xing was delighted. Their formation cards will soon be mine. There are many experts from Crown Sky Academy and Ziyang Academy. They must have snatched a lot of formation cards. If I find them all and drive them out of the 100 illusion formation, it should be enough for the top 10. He had made up his mind. Next, he would clean up the 2 students from Crown Sky Academy and Ziyang Academy, outside the 100 illusion formation. At this moment, another student from Purple Mountain Academy was sent out. It was Ren Xiaowu. He was at the peak of LV8, but he was also eliminated. In the 100 illusion formation, if a peak LV8 martial artist did not team up with a LV9 martial artist, it was easy for someone to snatch their formation card. Ren Xiaowu did not have the strength to fight against a LV9 martial artist, so it was normal for his formation card to be snatched. Sky Crown Marquis was full of smiles. Until now, no one from Crown Sky Academy had been eliminated. Seeing that another one from the Purple Mountain Academy had been eliminated, Sky Crown Marquis laughed happily. Purple Sun Marquis, look, another one from the Purple Mountain Academy has been eliminated. This is already the 9th one. Haha, just one more and all of them will be eliminated. Marquis Ziyang stroked the beard on his chin. His face was also full of smiles and he was in a good mood. Trash academies, it is certain that they will all be eliminated. Not long after, that little brat will also be eliminated. Sky Crown Marquis nodded and glanced at Purple Sun Marquis. Purple Sun Marquis, how long do you think it will take for the last one from Purple Mountain Academy to be eliminated? Not far away, Purple Sun Marquis' expression was normal. As long as Yi Xing was not eliminated, the elimination of others would not affect his state of mind. In his opinion, Purple Mountain Academy's students would be discouraged if they entered the Falling Star sect. If they did not have potential, it would be difficult for them to make a name for themselves in the sect. His hope was only on Yi Xing. In his eyes, only Yi Xing could create miracles. Purple Sun Marquis also glanced at Purple Sun Marquis and said, "At most 15 minutes. Marquis Guantian laughed. Marquis Ziyang, you think too highly of those trash students. How could they even need a quarter of an hour? I think at most a quarter of an hour, and those trash students will all be eliminated." Just as Sky Crown Marquis finished speaking, suddenly, a light flashed outside the 100 illusion formation. Another person was eliminated. Sky Crown Marquis' laughter stopped, and the smile on his face froze. Immediately, the light outside the 100 illusion formation flashed continuously, and people were eliminated one after another. Sky Crown Marquis' expression became more and more unsightly. The students who were continuously eliminated were all students of Sky Crown Academy. Not only were the students at the peak of the 8th rank eliminated, but even those at the beginning and middle of the 9th rank were eliminated. In less than 10 breaths of time, a total of 8 people from Sky Crown Academy had been eliminated. All the Marquis' gazes turned towards Sky Crown Marquis. Sky Crown Marquis's face burned, and he roared at the 8 people. You good-for-nothings, how could you be eliminated? Today, I was called an idiot by the author who pushed my new book to the top of the monthly votes. The Arrow God was originally the top of the monthly votes, but he pushed it up and showed off everywhere. He didn't even allow me to refute, and called me an idiot. He even said that he wanted to show off, so what could I do? Alright, I was really angry today. I delayed my writing, so I can't add more chapters. I can only update twice and apologize to my brothers. Tomorrow, I will adjust my state of mind and continue to explode. Furthermore, I will make a vow to my brothers that I will increase my explosiveness in the second half of the month. Calling me an idiot, yes, I am stupid. I am so stupid that I only know how to ask my brothers for votes, but I don't know how to spend money to buy votes. However, I will continue to be stupid. I have 3,000 subscribed brothers. If I go all out, I will definitely kill him and fight for first place. Brothers, if you have monthly votes, please vote. From tomorrow onwards, watch my performance. If I can't win, then I have lived in vain. Chapter 154. In Sky Crown Academy, the 8 students were stunned by Sky Crown Marquis's roar. Their expressions were both angry and ashamed. The mid-9th level student said submissively, It's Zishan Academy's Yixing. He stole our array card. Zishan Academy? Yixing? Everyone was stunned. It seemed that among the students of Zishan Academy, the highest cultivation was only at the peak of the 8th level. And Crown Sky Academy not only had 8 people, but 3 of them were 9th level martial artists. Furthermore, 2 of them were in the middle stage of the 9th level. With 8 people together, how could a peak 8th level martial artist snatch away all the array tokens? This was simply too unbelievable. What did you say? Sky Crown Marquis thought that he had misheard and asked again in disbelief. He had just mocked Zishan Academy for being a trash academy, and that all the students would be eliminated. Just as he finished speaking, his Sky Crown Academy eliminated 8 people in one go. Furthermore, the 8 people who were eliminated were actually Yixing from Zishan Academy. If Zishan Academy was a trash academy, didn't that mean that Sky Crown Academy was even worse than trash academies? The mid-9th level student saw Sky Crown Marquis's anger and said fearfully, It's Yixing from Zishan Academy, he. Enough. This time, Sky Crown Marquis heard it clearly. Without waiting for the student to finish, he shouted angrily, A bunch of trash, scram. There was a burst of laughter from the side. Although the nobles present were not as high as Sky Crown Marquis and would not go against him, they still dared to laugh when faced with such a ridiculous situation. Sky Crown Marquis felt a burning sensation on his face, and his face turned as black as charcoal. Beside him, Purple Sun Marquis also had an ashen face. Yixing's strength was actually so strong. If the students of Sky Crown Academy were to suffer, how could his Purple Sun Academy be spared? Sky Crown Marquis looked at Sky Crown Marquis, and so did Sky Crown Marquis. The 2 powerful nobles looked at each other, their eyes full of seriousness. For Yixing to be able to eliminate 8 people, his strength must have at least reached the level of a late-stage 9th level martial artist. Now the 2 nobles could only hope that Yixing would quickly be eliminated by the students of the 2 academies who were at the peak of the 9th level. Otherwise, if the other students encountered him, it would definitely be a disaster. Inside the 100 illusion formation, only 19 array formation cards. Although they have the advantage in numbers, they didn't manage to get that many. Yixing said unhappily as he tidied up the array formation cards that he had snatched from the 8 people. Even though he was alone, he had 27 array formation cards on him, and he had managed to snatch 26 of them. On the other hand, there were 8 of them, and they had only managed to snatch 11 of the 19 array formation cards. Compared to Yixing, their efficiency was much lower. 27 cards. Including these 19 cards, I have 46 cards. That's not a small number. There are still many students in the 2 academies. It should be enough if I snatch all of their cards. Yixing put away the 46 formation cards and looked into the distance, searching for the students of Crown Sky Academy and Purple Sun Academy. He looked into the distance and could see as far as 20 miles away. However, he did not find any students from the two academies. The space within the 100 illusions array was 100 miles wide. The target might not be within 20 miles of him. Furthermore, Yixing's vision was also obstructed by obstacles. The further away he was, the more he couldn't see due to the obstacles. The target might be within a radius of 20 miles from him, so he had to search carefully. With his eyesight, it was definitely not a difficult task to find the target. Yixing changed his position at lightning speed. Every few miles he would look for the highest point and observe his surroundings from afar. He only targeted the students from Crown Sky Academy and Purple Sun Academy. He did not care about the other students. However, if someone did not know what was good for them and provoked him, he would naturally take action. For example, Yixing was blocked by two level 9 martial artists. One was in the early stage of level 9, and the other was in the middle stage of level 9. Yixing did not say a word to the two people who wanted him to hand over all the array formation cards on him. He rushed over. His body was glowing with a golden light. He did not even use his inner strength. He used his invincible golden body to crush the two of them. The early stage level 9 martial artist had 1 array formation card. The middle stage level 9 martial artist had 7 array formation cards. Obviously, the two of them snatched the array formation cards, so that the middle stage level 9 martial artist could enter the top 10. He had a total of 54 array formation cards on him. If the number of array formation cards on the top of the rankings was higher than the average number, he would have the hope of entering the top 10 based on the number of array formation cards in his hand. Regardless of whether the array formation cards in his hand could enter the top 10, Yixing did not plan to stop. His goal was to let Crown Sky Academy and Purple Sun Academy eat a big duck egg and eliminate them all. Yixing continued forward. Not long after, Yixing was delighted. He found a group of students from Purple Sun Academy. There were only 5 of them. 2 were in the early stage of level 9, and 3 were in the peak of level 8. Yixing immediately dashed over with a bright smile. Not long after, the 5 of them also discovered Yixing. Someone pointed at him and shouted in surprise, "Look, it's the trash from Purple Mountain Academy. He's the murderer of Zhenxiang Temple. Destroy him." The 5 of them looked excited and also rushed toward Yixing. Even the 8 students from Crown Sky Academy, 2 of whom were in the middle stage level 9, had their array formation cards snatched by Yixing. The group from Purple Sun Academy only had 5 people. Moreover, the 2 level 9 martial artists were only in the early stage of level 9. The result was obvious. Yixing easily crushed the 5 of them with his physical body. He snatched their array formation cards with a few punches and kicks. What surprised Yixing was that they only had 5 array formation cards, 1 for each person. Did they not snatch others' array formation cards? Yixing did not understand. But he soon understood. Yixing climbed up a nearby peak and looked into the distance. He saw another group from Purple Sun Academy several miles away. This group only had 4 people. 2 were in the peak of level 8, 1 was in the middle stage of level 9, and 1 was in the late stage of level 9. With a late stage level 9 martial artist, this was definitely a heavyweight group. Yixing quickly realized that the group just now might have given their array formation cards to this group. Among the 10 students from Purple Sun Academy, 1 was in the peak of level 9, and 1 was in the late stage of level 9. Among the 1,050 people, there were only 4 in the peak of level 9. With their strength, there was no doubt that they would be in the top 10 if they snatched array formation cards. However, the late stage of level 9 was different. There were about 30 of them in the late stage of level 9. But other than the 3 in the peak of level 9, there were only a few spots in the top 10. The competition was very fierce. Therefore, the other students from Purple Sun Academy helped to snatch array formation cards, and then handed them to the late stage level 9 students. This way, it would greatly increase the chances of the late stage level 9 students entering the top 10. If that was really the case, then it meant that this late stage level 9 student from Purple Sun Academy had quite a few array formation cards. Yixing naturally perked up and chased after them. Lu Jiatsai was very happy. Just now, the other group from Purple Sun Academy handed over 8 array formation cards to him. On the other hand, the team he led had snatched 29 array formation cards. Now he had 38 array formation cards on him. If he snatched a few more array formation cards, his chances of entering the top 10 were very high. Lu Jiatsai was certain that the peak level 9 Heliani would enter the top 10. If he also entered the top 10, then there would be 2 students from Purple Sun Academy in the top 10. Seeing that he was getting closer and closer to the top 10, Lu Jiatsai was naturally very happy. Senior apprentice brother Lu, there's someone in front. The middle stage level 9 Yoda-shan suddenly pointed forward. Lu Jiatsai's gaze followed Yoda-shan's direction. Indeed, a few hundred meters ahead, a person's back was facing them, blocking their path. Only peak level 8. Senior apprentice brother Lu, we can snatch another array formation card. Yoda-shan said excitedly. Let's go. Lu Jiatsai chuckled and waved his hand forward. I opened this road, I planted this tree. If you dare to come here, leave behind your array formation card. Yixing said, slowly turning around. A mere peak level 8 actually dared to ask them to leave behind their array formation cards. Lu Jiatsai and the other 4 were all enraged. When Yixing turned around and saw Yixing's face clearly, the 5 were both angry and amused. Yoda-shan said disdainfully. I was wondering who dared to block our path. So it's a trash student from a trash school like you. Lu Jiatsai's eyes spat out flames of fury. Zhenxiang Temple died at your hands? Yixing nodded. He wanted to die, so I fulfilled his wish. Lu Jiatsai snorted angrily. Deshan, don't worry about anything. Just kill him. Although he was furious, Lu Jiatsai clearly didn't think much of Yixing and didn't attack personally. Yoda-shan walked out, his expression cold. Kid, you should be the last remaining of Mount Zishan School. Die. As soon as he finished speaking, Yoda-shan's figure shot towards Yixing like an arrow, like a lion hunting a rabbit. Supreme level martial art, Furious Lion Fist. Yoda-shan punched out instantly, his powerful aura almost condensing into the shadow of a furious lion. Light bloomed from his fist, condensing into an extremely terrifying inner strength, forming a huge fist shadow. A mid-9th level 9 full force attack was overwhelming and terrifying. To a peak level 8 martial artist, this was undoubtedly a fatal blow. However, Yixing's eyes didn't show the slightest bit of fear. His expression was still calm as he faced his opponent's fist and pointed out a finger. Yixing's palm instantly glowed with a golden light, and the inner strength condensed into a huge shadow of a finger. Supreme level martial art. Heavenly Annihilation Finger. Yoda-shan sneered. His cultivation was much higher than Yixing's. In terms of inner strength, he would definitely win. In terms of martial arts, he had mastered supreme level martial arts, and had reached the realm of great success. Yixing dared to use his finger to block his fist. He was simply courting death. However, he didn't know that in Yixing's eyes, he was also vulnerable. In terms of inner strength, Yixing's origin restoration force had reached the 6th level, which was comparable to a late-stage level 9. In terms of martial arts attainment, his Heavenly Annihilation Finger was at the level of perfection. In terms of physical strength, his invincible golden body was at the level of great success. No matter in which aspect, he could crush his opponent. When all 3 aspects were combined, it was even more crushing. Bang! With a loud explosion, Yoda-shan screamed. A bloody hole was almost poked in his fist, and the terrifying power instantly sent him flying. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Today, I will do my best to explode. At least 3 chapters and strive for 4. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.